This program was recorded on Monday, June the 20th, in the year of our Lord 2016. The opinions expressed by the participants in the following program do not necessarily represent that of this station or its management.
Or anybody else.
From the John DeVita Recording Studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. Now, here's the guy who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, June the 20th, the year 2016. Today, the panel will be talking about old amusement parks, such as Riverview Park, Kittyland, and, of course, much, much more. So sit back and enjoy Meet the Chicago Historians. And to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Richard Lang.
And now here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan. Jack?
Hey!
Well, this is where the buck passing stops, as Harry Truman said so many years ago. But well, thanks for listening. We're so glad you are there. We have to have someone out there listening to us, and it's such. I'd say it is a beautiful day. After all, we have the first day of summer. This is our summer solstice special show, in addition to others. Solstice
It
is
doesn't start till after 4 o'clock, though.
We're close.
Traffic controller. I know, we're warming up for it. So it'll be there by the time. You can be able to balance an egg by the time you're going home, on the side. And it's also our special June show. And as we're going to go around for Musketeer roll call first, and then we have a special request. Tom, you wanted to have something to say first off. So let's do our Musketeer roll call. Count off now. Bobby.
JJ, Annette.
No. Next, to my right.
Ken Little was in the Paralime office for 35 years, and then I taught Chicago history at Wright Junior College, and a couple of my students are here. And they're much older than I am, by the way. That was the strange thing about it.
How long did you do that, by the way? Teaching?
I taught 21 years, believe it or not. Yeah. 2 semesters a year. Yeah, I sort of fell into it,
Yeah.
And it was I would say all teachers would admit that they learn more from teaching than what they give out. So, and
Was it accredited, or was it an adult continuing?
No, it was not. It was a continuing.
Did you get some remuneration there?
Oh yeah,
a stipend?
They paid me. They also
Good.
paid money too.
Really?
Yeah.
No wampum, huh?
No wampum.
No.
No.
Oh, too much.
Well, at that time they didn't have money, so they had to have wampum.
Next up, and to your right.
Al
my right.
Opitz, former student of Ken's,
That's enough. No, go ahead. Let's hear it.
and former president of the Austin Urban Community Council and the 8th Air Force local chapter of the 8th Air Force Historical Society. And we were trying to plant trees over at the Dunning site where they have the memorial to the graves.
Okay. What kind of trees?
Wooden ones.
Wooden ones?
Wooden ones mainly.
Well, they have a lot of unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
38,000 were buried there. Probably 20% were unknowns, and most of them were what you call foundlings or stillborns, stuff like that.
Mm. Sad.
Isn't
Sad
it
but true.
unbelievable that many people were
Wow.
buried there? Would you say 38,000?
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
Well, that's basically from Narragansett Avenue to Oak Park, along a stretch probably around Belle Plaine.
But how many years was that 38,000?
All right, they started burying in 1854, and they stopped around 1922.
70 years ago. Yeah, about 70 years almost.
Yeah, they.
Okay.
I don't know why they stopped, but they did.
Why?
Why? They still had room.
Okay, if you say so. Okay, next up. Sure.
Tom McKenna, retired Chicago police officer, 34 years, and a lifelong friend of our moderator, John Ryan, and still one of the few people that actually admit to that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome, John.
I'm glad. Yeah, he's the guy who couldn't talk me out of getting married and that. And Tom went along on the honeymoon, an advisor. And only in advisory capacity, like our
Technical advisors.
You didn't take movies?
No, it's weird though. You and I, everything we did together, since second grade, known each other, and then they moved you out of in fifth grade to the other room because you were one of the ringleaders.
Yes, I was incorrigible at
you
that
were-
age.
Chambers knew all about
That's why
that.
I
right?
went on the police department.
Yeah, Father Chambers we're talking about was. Here's one of the best stories I'll ever hear. Well, let's tell it right now. We got you up in the circle. We're in Boy Scouts and the. Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, and Upper Guys Explorers. We're that later, but while we're in the Scout troop, it was like May weather, because still that troop meeting was about 7 at night. You brought a bugle down to the old classroom at St. Theodore, was in the 8th grade building, and you were giving different calls, and everybody was listening and going along with it, the leadership included. So Father Chambers comes in, chases you out, very get out of here, and like you did something wrong. Nobody speaks up. None of the leaders say, well, we had him doing this, whatever. And then to top it off, the next day, the assistant scoutmaster who was actually running the troop sends, was it a postcard or a letter? Postcard, wasn't it? To your folks saying that you were kicked out of the troop meeting because of your, listen to this, lack of disrespect and disobedience to Father Chambers.
Yeah.
Like
Now,
a
how's that?
disrespect?
I remember that.
Now there's a stand-up guy for you.
I was
Police are here to
I've
preserve
been
disorder.
all right. I've been permanently scarred for life on that after that incident.
He probably made this guy a Boston
That's
police
why I
officer.
switched. That's why I switched from bugle to the drums.
That's probably-
Thanks to Father Chambers.
They probably made this guy a boss in the police department later.
Well, the bugle players, they're very hard to find nowadays. Most of them, they play trumpet. They don't, to get a
That's
military
I don't think that's the reason though, Tom, because the bugle now is electronic. All you gotta do is push a button and put it up to your lips,
Oh,
and,
yeah, but
and it
still-
plays all by itself.
Still,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
you don't have any bugle players around. very
Well,
hard
no,
to find.
there's no reason. to
We
have it.
have a well-known fellow in Berwyn named Tom Day, who's a Marine Corps veteran, and he's been on the Fox News Sunday morning program a number of times. He's the head of an organization called Bugles Across America,
Right.
and that was his exact objective, was that he wanted there to be live taps
Yeah.
for every veteran who is laid to rest, and he does it himself, and he has hundreds, probably thousands, I think, of volunteer buglers across the country who do this now, and he will. We've had him at our town hall for Armistice Day and Memorial Day. He will play taps, and he got into it because of the fact that what you're saying, because the military was sending out buglers who had the recorded, the recording was made into the bugle, and they would just go through the motions of playing
Well,
taps.
I went to a military funeral, and there was a real bugle player there.
Same here. I've done a couple
Yeah,
of them.
so he, I took photographs of it, so it's quite a somber sight.
Yeah,
And I forgot where he was buried now, but he,
In the ground.
yeah, I know, but his wife said, I could take photographs, and I gave her a copy of all the photographs, and I said I did an excellent job because he was a radio operator in a B-17. So he had a chest full of ribbons, and I asked him what they were for, and he said, I don't know, they gave them to me.
He didn't want to.
Pretty modest.
Okay. Tom, you also were, a long time, you were a accident investigator, right? Major accident?
Yeah, retired out of major accident investigation.
So
I tell people that I was in a unit that you did not want to see me when I was working. You saw me when you were dead or wished you were.
Well put.
So,
No.
You must have known Lou Sella then.
yes, I did know Lou.
Lou who?
Lucella.
Yeah, he was my son's father-in-law,
Oh,
ex-father-in-law.
Okay. Rich.
I'm your announcer, Rich Lang, another student of Ken Little's. I've taught survey courses in modern European and American history at the college level. And I've gotten more and more involved in local neighborhood histories on the Northwest Side. And above all, still related to history, I'm active in a group that recreates old-time radio shows, especially comedies, like Jack Benny.
Well.
Now cut that out.
Yeah.
Well,
Well.
Mr. Benny.
Silly kid.
hey, Rochester.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm John Escacholco. I majored in history at DePaul University. I was in government in Cicero for many years, state representative and town assessor, and enjoy being part of the Meet the Chicago Historians program.
Thank you.
Bob Trazik. I never majored in history. I never majored in education. I never majored in anything. Just do a radio show for the fun of doing it, and then thank you for having me guest on your show today. And then later this evening, I come on and do my own show, Paranormal Radio.
Heard over these same stations.
Over the same station, yep, over the same network, yeah.
Bob, this is kind of a paranormal session that we have here once a month.
Is that two normal people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A paranormal?
Yeah, paranormal.
Paranormals, yep.
Yeah, two. Side by side, yeah.
You must know Ursula.
Paranoid or two noids?
Paratroopers, paramedics, paranormals.
Right.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Bill Kugelman. I spent 46 years on the Chicago Fire Department, and also president of Local 2 of the Firefighters Union. And I was also, on my days off, I was deputy director of the Illinois Bureau of Racetrack Police, and had quite a good job there. Quite a job that, you know what, and you shouldn't even call it a job. It's
Enjoyed it so much.
I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great, and I still do it once in a while too.
Yeah.
And have been retired, former president of the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, which we have a open house this Saturday, the 25th, from 2 to 4. We are at 5218 Southwestern, so this should be airing Wednesday or Thursday. Please stop in and see us Saturday, 10 to 2 at 5218 Southwestern.
And what's the cover charge there?
There is no cover charge.
No.
You can wear whatever you want. You don't have to be covered up.
We charge to get out. That's
Yes,
the problem.
there you
So
go.
let me out of here. Well, you'll have to make it, can't you?
Bring your camera.
Yeah, bring your.
Bring your camera and your kids and the older kids too, from 40 on up. They seem to get a bigger charge
Yes,
out
they
of
do.
being there and
Yeah,
wanting their picture taken than anybody else.
yeah.
Oh, that's it. And now we have to my right, Red. Why do they call you Red Ryan?
Bolshevik.
Goes back to the McCarthyism days.
Oh,
Of course, we were in grade school then. We didn't even know about them.
Yeah, can I tell a bugle joke? Just very briefly.
Okay, should we let Ken tell a bugle?
Sure.
Sure.
I love a good bugle joke.
Okay, well, I was an MP when I was in the service, and by the way, they never attacked the West Coast while I was out there.
That's true.
You've got
You're here.
that. You've got that going for you.
Them, they, yeah. Anyway,
Those them guys.
yeah, them, their guys. I was attending a class actually on military courtesy, and the sergeant there, who I thought was a little, mental midget, if you'll pardon the
Spacey?
expression, yeah. He said something about the MPs are here, and then the bugler comes in, and then he says bugler a second time, and I said, Sarge, can I take a look at that? He says bugler, not bugler, but he pronounced it bugler. No one in the class knew what the hell he was talking about, a bugler. So, anyway.
Jesus, Cub Scout would have known better, wouldn't they?
Well,
Father
I don't
Chambers
know.
knew.
Naturally made this guy a sergeant, so
Kick him upstairs.
kick him upstairs.
Okay, Mr. McKenna, you had
Yeah, briefly, for those of you that know or don't know, I'm a member of the Pipes and Drums of the Chicago Police Department, a founding member, I might add. And there is a National Police Officers Memorial every May in Washington, D.C., and we travel to that, and we play to honor our fallen heroes, police officers that have died in the line of duty, killed in the line of duty. And for those of you also who may or may not know, one of our panel members, Bill Kugelman, has a son that was tragically killed in the line of duty. So on this last trip to Washington, D.C., we went to the wall, the National Police Officers Memorial Wall, and when they etch their names in the wall, it's done in a fashion where you can take tracing paper and you can trace over the person's name. So, while I was in Washington, D.C., myself, my brother, a retired Chicago police officer, Dennis McKenna, and a good friend of ours, Tom Fowlard, who is Assistant Deputy Superintendent of Chicago Police Department, and also Chief on the Cook County Police Department, and the former Chief of Hazel Crest, Illinois, he assisted me, and we took, if I can get it out of the bag, we took a rubbing of the name of Trooper John Kugelman, and I would like to present that to John's father. Thank you, Bill, for sharing your son with us. Thank you, John, and thank you to all police officers and law enforcement officers. I don't know if you have one of these, Bill, but now you have two.
Not like
Yeah.
that, Tom, and
Okay.
you really touched my, oh boy. Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Line 14.
Let's take a look at it, Bill.
Yeah,
There you go.
pass it around.
Yeah.
By the way, November 10th, this November 10th, I have no idea what time, but the intersection of I-190 and I-355 will be dedicated to John.
Yeah, that's great.
Similar to what they did with Jane Byrne, with that interchange, but that's where he was murdered, and they're going to have a big, a big celebration.
What town would that be, Bill?
Memorialization, Itasca,
Is that Itasca?
and I've talked to the Itasca Fire Department, of which John would go in once in a while, and knew some of them, and they are going to, because of the weather in November 10th, they're going to empty out the firehouse, and everybody will meet in there.
That's great.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
what a great group.
Yeah.
As you see the shirt I've got on, I was invited to the Retired Illinois State Police Association luncheon here a good month or so ago, and it was really neat, seeing all of these guys. John's old commander of District 2 came over. He was behind me, and my daughter was at my side, and Jim Murphy is his name. Jim started talking about John, and he started crying.
Yeah.
And the tears are going down on Beth's back, and well, he had me going, he had Beth going, and
Yeah.
that's how much they liked that kid.
Yeah.
But when I left, they said, "Oh, here's a package for you." I must have a dozen or more of different colored T-shirts and different that they had made with his name is on the back,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's quite an organization. It's really a classy outfit.
Chief, if we lose our history, we lose our direction, we lose everything.
Exactly,
Like-
Ken.
Like John would say, you don't know your history. Why? It's not all
Tradition.
been done before, but
Yeah.
quite a bit of it has, and
Yeah.
I
I mean, this will keep his name up for
Yeah.
years to come, and
Yeah.
tradition, and that's, I don't know if you get that, what is it, fire rescue or whatever it is, on the internet,
I don't.
but they came on, and they showed a couple of Chicago fire rigs being constructed, And I've noticed, looking around, that some of the rigs out on the street do not have the black on the top anymore.
No, I know. I just been told that.
Yeah.
Their fleet is.
And it looks like something from the suburbs.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
the suburbs were so proud. Schaumburg comes to my mind
Yeah.
to copy us
Yeah.
with the black top.
Yeah.
You know, so what? But there's our tradition. They're
Yeah.
going to all red, and it looks to me, to you,
Yeah.
Ken, looks stupid.
Sure.
It just looks
Yeah.
like they bought a rig out of the
And that's what they did.
yeah.
Well-
I mean, what does it cost to spray the top of a
Yeah.
car or a truck black?
Yeah.
You know,
About $10 in paint.
yeah,
Nothing if you give it to some demonstrators.
yeah, yeah.
But I was watching TV the other day, and they were rebuilding a pumper from the 20s. That was quite a job, because they had a big diesel engine in there, and all the pumps and everything else that went with it. It was quite an operation.
Could
was
be.
that-
We have ours.
That was rebuilt. It was being restored.
Who was doing
Yeah,
this?
ours too.
That was on one of the programs.
I mean, was it locally or?
No, it wasn't locally.
Was it a big rig from California or something like that?
I can't recall, because I didn't
Like
get
a
the
four-door
beginning of it.
sedan,
Yeah.
because I know I saw them. There's a show that they rebuild.
Oh,
Yeah, all
You know,
kinds of-
cars, trucks.
friend of
and-
mine
yeah,
watches that
custom
show.
make 'em,
Yeah, yeah,
And they did a great job
Yeah.
on that. This was a unique rig
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's about a 37.
Now, when you say
LaFrance.
pumper, what is that now in particular? Is that actual
Pumps water.
Pumps
physically
water.
though? I mean, you have to
Yeah.
operate it, push.
No, no,
Not in the 20s, no.
no.
Oh, it might have been 30s. I don't know. I
As-
didn't catch
as
the
a-
year on
No,
it.
man, by that time they had
Yeah,
mechanized.
as a
Yeah, it
motor.
was
Not like the
it was
19th
a-
century. We had
Yeah,
those.
it was a
No.
big diesel engine in it, and they had a problem with that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have
maybe-
at the museum. We have a pumper from that era, and it was in California or in Florida, but it was Chicago Fire Department Engine 10
Yeah.
originally, and this guy, you know, redid the whole thing and got it back into shape, and we bought it from him, and we have it on display at the museum. In fact, we had it at the muster Saturday, and something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened. Well, we had a call for a tow, so to
that
speak.
vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah, something
talking
happened.
earlier
I mean,
about,
the thing is 19. What is it? 18
It's a 28.
or a 28? Yeah,
But it runs and pumps and,
yeah.
you know, it's great for displays and
It just so
It-
happened something happened to it
right-hand
there.
steering.
right in front of everybody too. I guess.
The reason why I was thinking, wasn't there a physical type years ago? I mean, maybe in the last century or the 19th century, where they actually
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yes. Yeah, that was a hand pump.
Hand pumper.
Now-
We have one on display at the
Yeah.
Academy.
I missed it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They had, I think,
that
what,
makes
six
me
guys
think
in
of
each side, three
when
guys each
Spanish
side,
they
something
call them
like
Los Bomberos, or the Los Bomberos are the firemen, the pumpers.
Right. Right.
So-
Right.
Just a little footnote.
It's about all we learned when we went to Spanish school back in the what six.
I don't know.
I don't
Crazy.
remember when it was.
¿Cómo está
it's-
usted?
Ah,
Muy bien,
it's-
gracias.
I spent 4 years at St. George and I of Spanish, and I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky. I had 2 years of Latin at St. Rita before I had the Spanish, and man, Spanish was a snap.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Latin, not only do the verbs conjugate, but the nouns have a declension, different endings. So
What?
Yeah.
What did you say, Tom?
What did he say? Hey, hey, hey.
I have no idea.
I'm not even sure what I said, but they changed. And then I had a semester at the City College at Wilson. But the best of all, Police Academy, 6 weeks. You're paid to go there by a federal program. We were anyway, and that was like a vacation. But it was good the way they did it, 1 page at a time. ER verbs, AR verbs, you know, and it was pretty good. I was enjoyed it very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
federal program.
We in the fire department, and I'm not
USMPN,
saying
it's all
anything
about
that out of the class, but the commissioner at that time we had some deaths. Is what led up to it in the Spanish community, and they complained that they couldn't communicate with the firemen coming in, so the commissioner set up this school for us and sent us down there, and the big joke was this commissioner didn't even know Spanish
Yeah.
at that time. Here we were.
There was,
That's about all we heard.
Was he
The
Spanish surname, too?
bomberos, yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yes, yeah.
there was one
Quinn.
commissioner who had a Spanish surname, and he didn't know how to speak Spanish, but he knew how to speak Polish.
Who's that?
I forgot who it was.
Matt Rodriguez on the police department. He didn't know any Spanish.
Matt Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah, Matt
His
didn't
mother
know.
was Polish or Bohemian, and his father was Mexican.
Yeah.
They had to teach him at before he was superintendent, some big parade. He teach him how to say "Hola, Hispanicos" at the beginning. So.
By the way, I was notified this morning by email. I think it's in August. The 19th district is having I guess their yearly meeting of retired and active, and it's way out on the northwest side. And
Oh, right, I saw that.
did you see that? And Matt Rodriguez is one of the guys that's going to
Yeah,
be there.
and the
And the sheriff
Right.
of Milwaukee County, this
Sheriff Clark.
is it
Sheriff
Clark?
Clark.
Yeah, he's going to
Yeah.
be there.
I
yeah,
saw that too.
I heard him speak out in Washington D.C. He's very
Oh
very
yeah,
powerful.
yeah, yeah.
His big line is fix the ghetto, not the police.
Yeah, yeah. I can't miss that. That's
Yeah,
we're going to
I
get
was
a
thinking
table.
August 9th.
Is that when it? Okay.
Yeah, I did just read that again today. It's reverberating around everywhere. So, you ever seen him on
Klein
Fox
will be
News?
there. Rodriguez. Who was the other commissioner?
Phil Klein,
Yeah.
O'Grady, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Jimmy O'Grady. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that should be interesting, especially with that Clark there. He's
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I see him on TV.
oh, he's
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great.
He's got a lot of the appeal that we find in a certain presidential candidate because he speaks plain English
Yeah.
and what's on people's minds instead of tiptoeing around and dancing. And
Well, if you're retired, you can do that. If you're on active,
he's not
you
retired.
can't.
Oh yeah, no.
He's a sheriff of
no,
Milwaukee.
No, he's
yeah,
not
no, he's
retired.
not
Maybe they're a little
retired.
more.
He's still active.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. A lot of people. How come he's so popular? Well, he says what people want to say, but they're afraid to say.
It's about time.
Yeah, that's it.
Even though he's might be a little bit
That's what
rough.
we always said about Rush Limbaugh. He is saying what we are thinking,
Yeah.
no matter
Trump,
what you think of him.
Trump got rid of his campaign manager
Yeah.
this morning, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the second one.
Is that
was the
that
name? I
Polish
forget.
guy?
Lewinsky, I
Lewandowski
think, or
or-
Lowen, whatever his name is.
That
Yeah.
was right, yeah.
Oh,
Donald Trump has like 70 people on his campaign staff. Hillary Clinton has like 720.
Yeah.
They
Well,
probably
it
equate.
takes a little longer for Hillary to get the word out.
Whatever. That's only a factual. That's not. That's no judgment on my part. It's just a fact.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Now, time for a brief intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
Whoa.
Well, I learned a lot
Getting
about.
some water.
Suffer from pain? Do you know someone that has constant pain of their low back, neck, shoulder, knee, or wrist? Have they tried medications, exercise, physical therapy, or chiropractic, and nothing seemed to make it better? Well, I may have your answer. Why not try a napropath? Hi everybody, this is Dr. Wayne Chickowitz, and I've been practicing 30 years treating pain. I'm board certified and hold a diplomate in pain management. For your convenience, we have two locations. In Cicero, 3602 South 61st Avenue, 708-656-7000, or in Villa Park at 122 West St. Charles Road, Suite 1A, 630-833-4007. Why not try a napropath and stop the pain today?
Edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. Jack?
Okay, let's going to change gears a little bit. Get in with the our favorite topic. It's as they say on History Channel, history made fresh, which we also call current events. And of course, we had the massacre last week, the mass murder in Orlando, and as we're finding out more and more about that, I do get a little bit when any news organization gets on one of these, they kind of overfeed you. But I mean, when there's something to be learned, it's one thing. So, anybody got any want to start off here? What about that? Any observations? Bob Trezak, our guest? No.
One of the things about the massacre, they were calling it the worst massacre in the history of the United States. Somebody pointed out that the massacre at Wounded Knee killed more than. But I guess you're not supposed to talk about that.
How about Fort Dearborn?
Right.
That would be. Yeah, some of those men.
Well, Fort Dearborn, as far as body count,
Hey, what?
the body count wouldn't compare at all. We didn't lose that many.
How many?
I would guess about 20 maybe or so.
20?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know. I mean, we don't know. There wasn't really many statistics I've ever seen any of those myself.
They know. Yeah.
Do they?
know. Oh yeah. Yeah. Mostly civilians, but some soldiers were killed.
Yeah,
Just too bad somebody didn't have a gun on them in there that knew what to do.
Well, that's just a fallacy. You go up to one of these. I saw a political cartoon. It's two obvious terrorists. They're coming up to a place, and one guy says to them, "Don't you see that no gun zone sign there?" You know, I mean, that makes it easy pickings for the stick up the bad guys. If they know.
Absolutely, yeah. Our town doesn't have a, we don't have guns here. Well, gee, that's the place you're gonna,
The bad guys always got the guns, right?
There's no way, with all of these laws that the Congress is debating, I guess today, and this bunch of nitwits down in Springfield, there's no way you can get all the guns off the street.
Oh.
There's just no way to do that.
No.
Well, one of the things that the logic of the anti-gun lobby, when they speak about any type of weapon, they seem to target the AR-15, but anyway, the so-called assault weapons, define assault weapon. But anyway, when they say, and they ask the question, do you really need that type of weapon? Do you really need it? Well, my right back at you, when I pull up in front of one of their mansions or mini mansions, when they have an acre and a half of grass that they are using water to keep green, when they have a 6 or 7 bedroom, 5 bath home that with 3 people living in it, that they're using up a lot of energy and polluting the air. My question to them is, do you really need that mansion? Do you really need that? Because their question to us is, do you really need that gun? Well, I need the gun a lot more than you need that mansion. But the question is, this is the United States, and I always thought that if you really wanted something and it wasn't illegal, that you should be able to have it. Why is it that they question what we want, but we can't question what they want?
Because they make the rules. They're not just a participant in the debate. They're the umpire. They get to say what's in bounds and what's out of. At least they think they are. And they act as though they are, and they get away with it.
Well,
I'm sorry.
the other aspect of the thing was years ago when Chicago had the most strictest gun laws in the United States. They had more murders than the other areas of the United States. Mm-hmm. So apparently, killing off the guns doesn't help anything.
No, good analogy though, Tom. That
right.
I don't need a Lincoln or a Cadillac either.
But you want it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a gun is an inanimate object. Blaming a gun for violence is like blaming knives and forks and spoons for obesity.
Yep.
Or blaming cars for accidents. You talk about gun violence. I'm very fortunate. I have 5 handguns, and not one of them has ever accidentally gone off and killed anybody.
I've never seen a gun walking down the street shooting people.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, in certain areas of the country where per capita gun ownership is very high, namely North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, they don't have a lot of shootings. So my suggestion is they have safe weapons in those areas, and we have violent weapons in Chicago. So what we should do is we should swap out the violent guns that we have in Chicago for those peaceful guns that they have in those areas, and that will definitely solve the problem. Solve the problem, because it is gun violence.
I was watching a program, I think it was out west, and they were demonstrating the armament they had. And unbelievable, the size of the guns they had out there. And I just can't understand how they can afford to shoot them. You know, when you look at $10 a shell, stuff like this here, you know, because they were shooting pretty hefty pieces of equipment there. You know,
a friend of mine, fireman in Florida, Dade County, Ken knows Keith, called me one day and he says, Bill, he says, I finally found the bottom of my bucket list. He says, what I am going to buy with my pension, my get out of the job money, whatever he had. And I says, oh, what's that? He says, a Thompson.
Wow.
A Thompson.
Machine gun?
And I said, that's kind of strange. You're down there in Dade County. He says, I've always wanted one. He says, I didn't get one when I was in the service. He says, I know that you had one, you know, in the service. He says, I always wanted, and I said, boy, that's, what are you talking about money-wise, Keith? He says, guess. Oh, there I go. I'm guessing. And I guess 2,500, 10,000. I'm going all the way up. Anyway, make a long story short, $70,000.
Wow.
70,000.
Holy cow.
And he sent me. I know our listening audience can't see it, but he sent me a picture of him shooting that gun.
He bought it on a black market?
He bought it. He had to wait for the federal guideline, or not guideline, but go by the guidelines to get a federal license.
Yeah, there is a real strict. If they possessed one before certain years, like Brinks had them, and or some townships or whatever had them. But which brings me to another point.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Fred. And I said, I said we have one of our firemen that about a year ago he was out of the joint, Teddy Kozak, and the feds put him away for 4 years because he owned one without going through the legalities. Mm-hmm. And he says, no, he says, I'm going through it, and so he got it. He sent me a video of him at a range and going off, and I thought, my God, Keith, what does it cost you to just shoot that thing, with the shells that he's got to buy and that. And, but they're out there, and people are paying that price. What are you going to do?
Anyway, I was going to say, it would make you remind me with this federal law about the automatic machine gun, fully automatic. The same regulations apply to those, what we call assault weapons, apply to that. So there's a fraud that went on. It started with the Clinton administration when there was a ban on assault-style weapons, which were not assault weapons at all because they were semi-automatic. There were some weapons that were banned because they looked like a Glock or looked like a AK-47. There was one case where they banned one but not the other. It was the same weapon except it had a different sight. So, and then when it expired, I saw Clinton on television later how important it was to reinstate that. He wasn't the president anymore. But they always dropped the assault style. Look it up. Look on Wikipedia. They can tell you the whole story. Anyway, I'm not lying about it. It was a fraud.
One thing that really, I found, if anyone wants to know the definition of a hypocrite, Hillary Clinton is completely and totally against handguns. Yet she surrounds herself 24 hours a day with people that carry handguns. I mean, is this insane? Or
rules don't apply.
Yeah,
the rules
right.
don't apply to her.
No.
I mean, if she was really principled And I'm waiting for someone to do this that is some official to say, you know what, I feel so strongly about this that I am not even allowing my protective detail carry handguns. That's how strongly I feel about this. But you're not going to see that happen.
When Watergate was going on, I can remember watching the president, Richard Nixon, when he released the transcripts of his tapes, and he announced that he had removed certain things from the transcript because they pertained to national security. And the media responded with horse laughs and derision. I mean, we want to know what was in there. How can he edit it? But she's done the same thing. She issued her emails, deleted 30,000 of them. We have her word that there was nothing in there that was of any significance, and the media just accepts that at face value. Oh, well, we've got Hillary's word. That means that you can take that to the bank. There must be nothing important in there. So, the rules don't apply to Hillary. Hillary is special. The Clintons are special.
Well, that was also true with Obama when he went through. He was nothing but a neighborhood organizer, and he went all the way up to president.
Community organizer.
Who's that?
Oh, President Obama.
Oh.
You know who else?
My earring's bad. I said Slovano. Who's he?
You know who else was sort of a phony? Was Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, jeez.
Good God.
And she was against handguns. The first thing they said, you have a bodyguard? Yeah. Does he have a weapon? Yeah. Well, why don't you take the weapon away from him?
I saw the tape. She jumped all over Tom Selleck because he was with the NRA or something. Remember that on the show?
No, I don't.
I'm seeing the tape of that over again.
Oh,
She jumps on him. You go, I don't know what to say.
I remember many years ago when remember when John Lindsay was mayor of New York?
Yes.
Great liberal John Lindsay.
Yeah.
And he was upset because there were stories about how unsafe Central Park was in those days, and people were afraid to go into Central Park. And he was photographed in Central Park. He took a stroll through Central Park, and had his picture taken. And he was announcing how safe Central Park was, and he didn't feel the least bit endangered in Central Park. And Al Capp, who did Little Abner at that time and was becoming very conservative, said, if I was surrounded by platoons of bodyguards and 50 or 75 or 100 reporters and photographers taking my picture, I guess I would feel safe in Central Park, too.
That sounded like Jane Byrne at the housing complex.
Yeah. When she moved in there, you mean?
Yeah.
Moved in.
Now, just as a footnote and being show fairness, wasn't Lindsay a Republican?
Yes, he was.
He was, yeah.
A very liberal Republican. But he did eventually become a Democrat. He ran for president in 1972 as a Democrat.
Oh, so
Got
it was a case of truth in packaging or something like that?
He did. Before he died, he became a Democrat.
Oh, good for him.
Old man Daley was a Republican until he got elected, and then he turned Democrat.
He was first.
But didn't he run the
No,
first
that
time?
was all-
He ran as a Republican for the
Yeah.
state
Yeah.
legislature.
Well, I mean,
that was
But that was everybody
You
knew
can't
that
count
was
that.
national.
Couldn't get
we
that
had
far. in the city.
Leroy Martin, the former deputy, former superintendent of the police department, ran as a Republican for sheriff also. So,
First time Franklin Roosevelt ever voted for president, he voted for a Republican. His distant cousin Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And he talked about. He never shied. He always talked about the fact.
I wonder if he voted for himself. Do you think he might have?
Oh.
Probably.
Can you do that? Is that legal to
Probably.
vote for yourself?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfectly legal.
So he voted for
You're kind of a hypocrite.
Roosevelt 5 times, huh?
By the way, I've been watching the tapes on Ken Burns.
The Roosevelt
Yeah.
stories.
Well, that's-
Just fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Just
He
fascinating.
just does a great job.
Doesn't he? Yeah.
I sent for the Chicago
Oh,
tapes. There's
Yeah.
I don't know, so many DVDs in there,
Yeah.
but he does just a great job.
yeah.
Great job.
Now I
saw
forget
him
his
talk
next big
one time,
project.
but,
I forget what that's called.
At the Art Institute, he had a preview of Prohibition, the one that special series on the Prohibition.
Okay.
Anyway, then they did.
And the other guy on Channel 11, what's his name?
Jeffrey Bear.
Yeah,
No,
Jeffrey Bear.
Oh,
I watched his the other night, and I thought, you know what? I should call and see if I can't get him over to the museum, because he never mentions the statue that we have of Christopher Columbus,
yeah.
and that should be.
Oh, he's the Chicago
should
guy,
be-
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He worked his way up through the ranks. He used to be a tour guide.
Yeah.
And he worked his way up, and he
Well,
was
good. That's the American
That's
way.
what this is. It's a tour guide. See?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we were at the Goodman Theater last year, and Jeffrey Bear was there, and he knew someone in the cast and was waiting for him, and they were going to take him out to supper or something.
Yeah.
So I congratulated him. I said, you always learn something. There's always,
Yep.
a date, a little bit of history.
Yep.
That's.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I've met him myself.
Yeah.
So he gave a boat tour in the evening, which was a lot nicer because you got the city lights and all that stuff.
And it's
And we
cooler.
couldn't go up the south channel or the south branch, you want to call it. So we went up the north branch, went up to Damon Avenue, which was
Ooh,
a little more interesting, because he said that he's never been there.
yeah.
And he said it was non-navigatable. And I said, well, you got to remember in the Second World War, they used to bring up barges of coal up to Addison Street through this way.
He's been up to probably Addison or somewhere around there, and then from there on, his guide show just shows the river flowing
Oh.
beyond there at Foster
Yeah.
Avenue and
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
and,
Al, where they brought the barges was just south of Belmont. They somebody like Material Service had because I lived.
Yeah,
up
that
there
was
for a
another one.
while.
But during the Second World War, they
Was there
brought
one-
coal.
Did
Did they?
Yeah.
Because
Did they-
I live in that area, so I saw it. And they had I guess, an overhead crane that scooped the coal out.
Oh.
Did they barge in there?
Yes.
That was John Ryan that made that comment. For those of you keeping score, John Ryan.
That's a new record. My first terrible joke, and we're like 47 minutes into the show. So
I bet you lived in those nice little houseboats they had along the east side of the river between Irving Park and Montrose.
no.
You didn't?
I was on one of the boats. I get one quick story. They had an extra alarm fire on. Rockwell there is all commercial, and they store boats and repair boats, etc. So they have this houseboat, and it started to rain. My wife was with me, so we asked the lady there. She said, "Yeah, I on the deck or something." I said, "Can we step on the boat?" Yeah. So we get out of the rain. So sometime later, maybe a year later, the fire department, the boat starts to sink or something. So the fire department gets called. And they said, "Oh, you know what? We'll lasso the boat or something and pull it out." So they pulled and they tore the deck deck house right off of it. And the boat, eventually went boop. Bing. Well, we tried.
Well,
If you want to go up there anymore, Jeffrey Bear or anybody from around that place where the yard was, where they made the boats,
Yeah.
say at Belmont,
Oh,
you want to
yeah.
go anywhere north, you better be on a kayak or a canoe.
Yeah.
And they're there all the
All the
time.
time.
I live right on the river.
That's right. Yeah.
And no, you better be on a kayak or
those
and
houses.
we always had runs over there, Ken.
Yeah,
and they were
sure.
all bodies.
I know floating.
Yeah, we
was-
always had floaters there, or somebody underneath the viaduct that got shot.
Oh, they used to have
you know.
some real nice rats under the Addison Street
Oh,
We
bridge.
still do. We still do.
But what's sort of interesting, they have these docks along the river there, and none of them can be insured because the fact is that it's government property.
We had a
Cemetery.
lawsuit that was settled, federal government lawsuit. All the people that lived from, I think it was from Montrose North, that had the boat docks out there.
Yeah,
and, I
right.
mean, some of them
Yeah.
were very, very
Oh,
well
yeah.
done, classy.
Yeah.
And we were all named in that lawsuit. What the hell? I don't have a boat out there. But they had to put everybody
still-
that was along that river,
Chief, if you go over the Wilson Avenue Bridge and you look both ways, Virginia Avenue on one
Yeah.
side and Manor on the other, and
It's-
you can see the
It's a nice area.
It's a nice. They someday somebody will have some sort of a boat service there. Yeah, you want to take instead of taking the L, the Ravenswood L or something.
My daughter says that there is somebody out there, whether it's further down, that rents kayaks.
Yeah.
And she wants me to rent a kayak and
Yeah.
take her. And I said, well, you better get somebody,
You know where they rent
more your age.
rent a kayak, and this can tie in with Riverview.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Is along the river, east side of the river, north of Belmont. There's a little park there called Clark Park or something.
Yeah,
and you
they
can
put
rent.
Well, they've done a lot
Yeah.
of rehabbing.
Rehabbing, yeah.
Right
sure.
there at Montrose, right by me,
Yeah.
on both sides of the river from Montrose south.
Yeah,
And it's really nice. They got
yeah.
where you can walk down to the river.
To the river
Well, who
and-
the hell wants to walk down to that river and smell it?
it's not that bad anymore, is it?
Yeah, and I lived there.
Okay,
Well,
but they did build a boathouse over there on Addison and the river not too long ago. I saw it, but I haven't been.
Those are all the
visit.
people with the nose clips on.
Well,
Probably.
my one daughter still lives in the old neighborhood on Berry Avenue there in Washtenaw. And that area, Chief, west of Riverview, it's called like the Belmont Harbor or something or other. Anyway, they have a for whatever reason, they have a boat dock there, although no one has any boats, etc. So to spruce it up, they said, let's plant some trees along there. Well, one day they come along, all the trees are all chopped down. What goofy vandalism. It wasn't vandalism. They have a beaver that came over there and they ate up all the...
They could do wonders. I saw.
They still don't know. He lives somewhere over there. Tell him, hey, stay on your side of the river, way up for Christ's sake.
I keep the dog, and you're talking about rats. That's a rat terrier. I keep her on a leash all the time.
All the time.
Because I'm afraid somebody's or something is going to come up there.
Yeah.
There's, there's
Yeah.
look at the other day. There was deer in downtown.
Yeah.
Went into a store somewhere.
Oh, yeah?
Also
there's all
coyotes,
kinds of
yeah.
Do you
stuff.
have
I
a
see
credit
that.
card or anything?
I think they threw
Just
them out.
sightseeing.
Yeah, just
Did they
sightseeing.
did they spend $1 or $2?
Tom,
Da-da-da.
Once again, that was John Ryan.
And you
don't forget-
admit you know him, too. I would.
Don't forget the coyote went over visited subway station there to
Yeah.
cool off a little bit and get sandwich. I guess I don't know.
Well, my
they-
daughter,
well,
my
John-
daughter's living in
John?
Bur-
They didn't spend $1, but they did have a little dough.
Anyway, my daughter lives in a western suburb
I
now.
apologize for that.
And I was walking the dog
You
for her a
should.
few weeks ago at dusk, and I thought, gee, look, somebody's dog got off the leash. Very unusual around. It was a coyote about two houses down.
We had a coyote right in front of this house last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a
You know,
lot of
They're
It's
good.
after you, John.
No, it was after Oscar, I think. I was up in Wisconsin, and he called me. He says, "John, guess what?" I says, "What, Oscar?" "We just had a coyote on our front lawn." I said, "Oh my God!"
John,
They're
did you
good
tell him?
ratters.
Did you tell him? No, it's the third Monday is when you want to.
I know a lot of stories about coyotes, but on Archer Avenue, where I found a place where a lot of cougars.
Oh yeah.
I see those downtown
It's about
on Michigan Avenue.
there we gotta
Let
go.
me know if you got one with a lot of money.
Yeah. Or any money.
Or
Thinks I got money or whatever.
Yeah.
Anywho,
But
We'll pause to give the audience time to groan.
Yeah.
But the funny story about coyotes downtown, particularly, is the city is complaining about all the vegetation was being eaten up, and somebody finally figured out that coyotes eat rabbits. Rabbits eat the vegetation, and if we keep coyotes downtown, we'll get rid of the problem with the vegetation. So now they tag the coyotes so they know where most of them are at. And I guess they do a pretty good job.
Where is this now?
Downtown.
Where?
I think Millennium.
Mostly east of Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, I
Along
think
the lake shore.
Yeah,
The
Millennium
town
Park.
is licensing
the
coyotes
4-footed
now to
Yeah.
attack
4-footed
rabbits.
coyote.
Yeah.
Yep. All
Hey,
the
they're
above.
When are the rabbit lovers going to respond to
Well,
this?
and plus also, they're registering the coyotes to vote.
Yeah.
Probably.
So,
Which way?
They're registering cats to go attack rats. You know about that program? That's
Feral cats.
feral cats. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, the cats are more of a pain than the coyotes, though, as far as my
The cats
perspective.
at least are clean. They dig a hole, they bury, you know.
Not necessarily.
Oh, I don't know about that. But
Sure.
Yeah.
I remember my landscaper or lawn cutter, or they come in and says, "You got to clean up after your dog." And I said, "I don't have a dog."
You still have to clean up.
Well, it's a
It
good
was a cat.
idea.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's some
Um,
regulation.
I found out, and I don't want to make anybody sick here, but
Yeah.
rats feed on fecal material dropped by dogs, cats, or whatever. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, they're cleaning it up. On the other hand, they're thriving on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Boy, the things you'll learn on radio, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It's an educational
It's
medium,
an
yeah.
yeah, it really is.
But
yeah.
if a cat and a coyote get together, the cat disappears.
Did you ever hear of a key wolf?
No.
This is for real. Now, honest to God, my right hand to God, there was a special about it on the PBS. It's a hybrid between a coyote and a wolf, and it's about the size of a wolf, but it looks more like a coyote. And they were discovered, I guess, in the 1920s. It happened in nature. It wasn't in some laboratory somewhere. COY wolf, key wolf, they call it.
No.
Yeah, wolves in general are not as dangerous as they're portrayed. The usual story comes in, don't get between them and their food, though.
Yeah, when coyotes.
Well, that's
will-
what's
Of some
What
people
about me?
that I've known.
Yeah.
I've known people of whom that could have been laid down.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess coyotes will not attack.
There was a story the last couple of days about a woman whose son or daughter, 3 or 4 years old, was grabbed by a bear, a
Yeah.
black bear, and she went up and she attacked the bear,
Yeah.
and bingo, the bear let
He
go of the
really-
kid,
Yeah.
and she reported it to the authorities there, and they said, well, she's following the sign that we've got out there. Don't be afraid of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the
Fight
I'd be
'em.
afraid of them.
fight them. Yeah, well,
the only ones that are a problem is in Yellowstone Park because of the fact they feed the bears.
they feed them everywhere.
I know,
They
but
feed
up in
'em everywhere.
Alaska,
I
they're
see people up near me in Baraboo.
They did
They're
that.
feeding them.
They did that at Jellystone Park too. As I
Yeah.
remember. Yogi
But-
Bear was always being fed by the.
yeah.
Hey, Ranger Smith.
Up in Alaska, though, that they lock everything up, and the bears are not a real problem. They said the moose are more of a problem than the bears. And I was
And the
walking down.
Rotarian, the Rotary. They're
You mean
Rotary.
Bullwinkle is
I
more
was-
dangerous than
Bullwinkle
Yogi?
than the moose.
yeah, the elks are right in there too.
I was walking
story
down
here
a trail,
on,
and there was a moose in front of me, and that thing is, taller than I was. That's the rear end.
Well, it's the old joke about the hunter who went out and bagged 2 moose, an elk, and a Rotarian.
But they claim up there, though, because the moose cannot turn corners so much. If you are attacked by a moose, stay behind a tree. They can't get at you.
They don't look around trees. Huh?
They can't get at you because they can't move fast
I'll
enough.
bet you they don't climb them either.
Yeah.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I'm sorry. I must interrupt once again. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we thank you for it. We'll be right back. That was a long time.
Well, friends, now that the warm weather has arrived, it's time to plant your flower and vegetable garden. It's not too late to start planting your flowers and vegetable gardens, and I have just the right place for you to go. Get your flowers and vegetable plants. You can go to Pesky's Flower Gift Shop, Garden Center, and Greenhouse which is located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois. Pesky's has a very large selection of flowers, vegetable plants, and much, much more. Whatever you need for your flowers or vegetable garden, you can find it at Pesky's. And once again, they are located at 170 South River Road. They are just north of Route 14 or Minor Street and south of Gulf Road, which is Route 58, on the west side of River Road. And be sure to stop in and visit their flower and gift shop. Again, Pesky's Flower, Gift Shop, and Garden Center, located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois. River Road is Route 45, and they are on the north of Route 14 or Minor Street, and south of Gulf Road or Route 58. You can call Pesky's at area code 847-299-1300 for more information. Again, that phone number is 847-299-1300, or they're located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Now, back to our show.
We're all back from recess. We're up playing on the swings and the teeter-totters and the little merry-go-round. What else was out? The sandbox.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're going to get to our topic of today. Yes, John Kushelko.
Can I offer another animal vignette? We've all heard the story recently about the tragedy in Florida where the alligator caused the death of a child. And I saw one of these animal experts who was on one of the morning shows, and they were interviewing this animal expert and he was going on and on. He says, well, you know, really we're very fortunate because the alligator was nearly extinct. It was on the endangered list. Yeah. So it's one of the great success stories that they've come back, and there are now thousands and thousands of alligators. And I'm thinking, I'm sure that must make the family feel very good to know that there's all these alligators now that maybe if there weren't, that their child might still be alive.
Two words, John. Bad timing on that.
Yeah, there was a.
Do we really need thousands and thousands of alligators?
What did they say? How many alligators? How many alligators are in Florida? 1 million or something like that?
The numbers are huge. Do we really need that many alligators?
There's also boa constrictors down there which don't belong, but that's just the open season on those.
People let them go. Yeah.
You can shoot those anytime you want it. But anyways, the story about an alligator. I was watching a little blurb on TV, and a cat was on the shore. And an alligator came ashore, and the cat really scared it away. Come after it, usual. And the alligator couldn't handle it, and he disappeared. So as a watch cat,
Okay.
Another thing is nobody has made the connection between the gorilla story. Remember the gorilla that had the child?
Sure. Yeah.
And the gorilla was shot, and there was all this uproar over shooting the gorilla. Well, you see what happened. I mean, they weren't able to retrieve the child from the alligator, and you see what the result was. Yeah. So nobody's made that
I heard somebody make the... I did hear somebody make it,
There was a similar story with a female gorilla, and a kid fell in the pen, and she picked him up and gave him to the keeper.
That was here in Chicago.
That was out in Brookfield Zoo, I think,
So she was,
But an animal like that, they're so strong, they can hurt you without trying.
Now, the trouble is this is a male. The male is not always friendly towards kids.
Right.
Just like
even towards
yesterday was Father's Day.
Yeah.
Hell, I found that out personally.
Okay. Enough animals already. Enough, you animals.
Did they have animals at Riverview?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them. That's why they shut it down.
How about at Kidney Land?
Yeah, how about a Kidney Land? Yeah, Kidney Land. Yeah, we're talking about the amusement parks of Chicago. Okay, let's see. We're going to start here. Who are we going to start with safely?
You go all the way back to White City, don't you?
My mom and uncle used to go. There was a White City after the original. Okay, Bob Trezak is our guest, and he haven't said anything yet. If you think you're getting paid a regular
Yeah.
check here. We're not saying anything.
No, I don't do political stuff, so that's why I keep quiet. I just let everybody else talk.
Stocking
We do.
50%
This
of
is
the fee.
political.
Okay, amusement parks. A lot of them around town. Or
Yeah.
Oh
quite
yeah,
a
we
few.
got a lot of them. Yeah, we're no longer the amusement park capital that we once were, but we got a lot
We
of
were?
them. Yeah. For a while we were. Yeah, for the Midwest. Yeah, we had a lot. Yeah. Mhm.
like
You always
It all
remember-
kind of. I'm glad you mentioned the White City because it actually all kind of started with the original White City, the Columbian Exposition. That started the amusement parks in Chicago. 1893, the Midway at the Exposition was so successful with the Ferris wheel and with the ice railway and the attractions they had there. Later on in 1905, they said, well, let's put something like this permanent in the city of Chicago. So then they came up with the White City, and that opened in 1905. And that lasted up until about 1937 or 39 or so, and then they got rid of that. So we actually had two major parks kind of operating at the same time there for a while. We had the White City and we had Riverview. Because Riverview opened up right around that same time, about 1905.
I had several smaller parks out there. There was one on 47th in Harlem, and there was one on Harlem in Irving Park. Actually,
Yep.
it's just a little bit
Kitty
north
Land,
of
yeah.
that. And then Kitty Land in Maywood, and then the almighty Olson Park.
Yep.
Yeah.
While you're on the subject, what was the reason for it shutting down in the late 30s? I mean, why
The
was-
White City had been losing money. The Depression kind of struck, and what happened?
okay.
What happened was, well, Depression wouldn't have really been the major thing. Would close down the White City,
Yeah,
but they were
39, that's already 10 years into the
But they were having some trouble with some fires too. They had some fires that kind of burnt down some of their major attractions. And they were able to get going again, and but they never really picked up and got the business back like it had once been. So they decided to fold, and it had just kind of become outdated. It was
can
getting
anyone on our
outdated.
panel remember that White City or no? No.
The only thing I remember, it was interesting, both of the major parks, Riverview and White City, had separate buildings for roller skating.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they lasted a long time. The last one burned like around 61 or so, and that was, 63rd and just east of South Park there.
Oh, that was
And
one
then,
of-
and then I was going to say, and then the other one on Riverview area was on Belmont and the river, and
Right.
that was
I do
think
know
it
my
was
mother.
separated.
She related stories. Her and her younger brother, my Uncle Wall, they would get over to. There were special days they could get coupons or whatever. They lived at 45th and Shields, and the White City was where 63rd and
South Park.
Not too far from the original Columbian Exposition.
yeah.
It was
So
close by.
they would get over there in the
Yeah.
bus or walk,
Yeah.
And I'm talking in the 30s, and when they had all kinds, 2 free days, two for one. They had. My uncle said he saw boxing and wrestling there.
They had a lot of
Before World
strange
War II.
attractions
That
at the
was-
White City.
yes.
They had the Midget City. They had the Chicago Fire. Every night they would burn down the city of Chicago and a fire recreation. And
Yeah.
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 So they had a lot of strange things. Yeah.
And they had-
Riverview did too, for that matter. When
Yeah.
Riverview
Yeah.
was done, they had a lot of weird. They had the Monitor and the
I
Merrimack
had one of
battles and
one
freak-
of the
and the freak show.
postcards showing
freak show. Yeah.
showing the fire. They would set fire to a building,
Yeah.
ostensibly, and then
Remember the
the-
politically incorrect dunk tanks they had at
Yeah,
Riverview.
Yeah. The African.
You
The
couldn't do that
African dip.
anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
African dip. Yeah.
Black people were not encouraged really at either park in the beginnings, at Riverview or at the White City. That's why they said the White City was an actual White City. Because they really didn't encourage them there. If they came in, they were made to feel not too welcomed and that kind of stuff. However, they were not barred from performing and doing strange things like with the African dip and that kind of stuff like that. And many people now feel that's racist and stuff, but the guys that did it in those days felt it was employment.
Those
so
dunk
they-
tanks we were just talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, the African
Yeah,
dip.
they-
Those are supposed to be
made
the
good money.
best paid people in the place, weren't
Yeah,
they?
Yeah, they were.
Well, no, the best paid in River. Now I can't say for the White City, but in Riverview, the best one was the Shoot. The man that rode the Shoot, because that was the only ride you rode on. He actually rode that one on the back of the Shoot to steer it around in the lagoon, and he got $10.70 a day, and that was the highest paying in Riverview.
Yeah.
Pretty
Oh,
good.
Riverview had a driving range there one time, and they had a picnic grove. So we
That's how it started.
Yeah.
It was actually a picnic room. Then he put the
Yeah.
carousel
Like a beer
in.
garden.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
it's just north of there was the driving range, and across the street was a 9-hole golf course. So that was quite an entertainment area.
I talked to Vic Testino, who has been on this show, and he told me on that African dip, he was talking, and they were closing it. They had just closed it down.
Mm-hmm.
one of the performers there said, I make $300 a week.
They made good money. They did. Those
Made-
guys made good money. That's why they had no qualms about doing it.
No,
Yeah.
but they egg people on. Hey, you,
Yep.
Baldy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know.
Sure, to get you mad to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Spend a quarter to throw the ball at them.
Ain't that a different girl than you had here yesterday? You know,
Well,
it's like-
yeah. Then later on, I was just going to say that later on, what they did is they changed. They took the black guys out and they put the girls in bathing suits in, and they had
I
that.
missed that.
They did
yeah,
that,
I
yeah.
missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gee, I never saw that.
But the White City, the Columbian Exposition, was so successful and it made so much money. The Midway at the Exposition was actually the thing that saved the Exposition from bankruptcy. That made the money, so that's why they got the
Yeah.
idea. Let's put some parks in like this.
Yeah.
And then when they built the White City, the amusement park, they actually modeled it after the Columbian Exposition.
Yeah,
Buildings were all white. You had the lagoon in
Yeah.
the middle. You had all
Yeah.
that, So they modeled it as closely as they could because so many people liked it and remembered it, and it
Did,
wasn't all that many years before.
Was also saved Chicago from the Great Depression or Recession at the time. They had the Panic of '93, and the Columbian Exposition stopped it for about a year.
27 million people came to Chicago
Yeah.
for the Columbian Exposition. That was a tremendous. That was almost half the population of the United States. So that was a lot of people that came to the city,
A lot of them were from out of the country.
and it was a 50-cent admission to get into the Columbian Exposition.
Interesting you talk about the Midway carrying the exposition. That was true of the New York World's Fair in 1939-40 as well.
Yeah,
It
right.
was always the lowbrow entertainment that was
Yeah.
the moneymaker.
That's right.
Yeah.
That
Well-
subsidized all the high-tone intellectual stuff that everybody remembers from those World's Fair. But
Yeah.
it was the entertainment for the masses that was actually bringing in the money.
Yeah, the
What was,
Midway.
what was actually happening with the Columbian Exposition, the fair planners and the backers and everything, the people that got the fair going, they were actually getting disappointed. They said, people are coming in, but they're not going to the Palace of Fine Arts. They're not going to Machinery Hall. They're heading down to the Midway. They're riding the Ferris wheel, and they're going to see Little Egypt dance to Hoochie Coochie and all the crazy
Yeah.
stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And everything you did on the Midway was an extra admission. You paid extra for it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, people are willing to spend their money on this stuff. At the exposition itself, the only extra thing that charged an admission was the Crystal Cave. They charged 10 cents, but everything else in the exposition, all the halls and things you did were free. And then what they actually wound up doing at the Columbian Exposition, like midway through the summer, when they saw attendance going down and so many people flocking to the Midway, was they started putting boat races on the lagoon and swimming contests and having marching bands and things to get people back to the exposition and not so much on the Midway.
Now,
Well,
with the
The one that was the most popular in Riverview was Aladdin's Castle, because of the fact they had the air jets,
Yeah.
and the women at that time were wearing dresses.
Yeah, a guy would sit in the door and they'd watch when you came to a certain spot and they'd hit the air jet and their skirts
Yeah.
would fly up.
Get the Marilyn
Originally they had a
Monroe.
midget. There was a little midget there that was kind of like a sinister clown type midget, and he would taunt the women, get them over to a certain spot and get them to the right
Wow.
place, and then the guy would watch when they were in that certain spot standing there and up with the
Bob,
skirts.
when did you say that Riverview started?
Riverview started
before
in,
that?
in 1905, and it was actually called Sharpshooters Park.
Yeah.
And it was like a German beer garden type thing like that. And then they put a carousel in, and then the son of I forget the name of the family that actually owned the Riverview. There actually was an owner, and he toured Europe, and he said, in Europe they have these little parks and things like that, and we should be doing that here, And then they started from that. It kind of
Well, I didn't bring it in, but
Yeah.
in the car, I have my grandmother's guitar, and I also have I forgot to bring it in,
You should bring it in and play it for us.
a bell, whatever you want to call it, from Riverview. My grandmother had a Swiss yodeling group. There were 5 of them. And
I don't want to talk about yodeling.
I
I went
know.
to the German Fest at Milwaukee one time, and I don't know who planned the entertainment for that event. Great event, lovely, nice food, nice event, nice planning, very clean, wonderful. But whoever planned the entertainment, every single pavilion where there was music was all German yodelers and bell ringers.
Oh.
So by the end of the day, I got on the bus, and that's all I heard in my head.
Listen, are you complimenting, or are you getting at my grandmother?
What, your grandmother a yodeler?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she danced the hula with the guitar or something at the.
No,
You know,
Louisa,
Against the
and it
hula.
was an actual singing group.
Oh, sure.
And I've got one of the papers. From
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of it, but
And
I
I
don't want
wanna
for
sell
8
it.
hours to
You know,
listen
you
to
know how
it.
yodeling
I can't
started.
talk
don't you?
with 4 of
Ding
us
dong,
talking
ding
here.
dong.
You sure
know how-
don't know how to run that.
You know how
do
yodeling
you?
started?
No, I have no idea.
Well, yodeling was primarily Swiss Alps. or the
I was
Alps.
just going to ask that question.
And it has no echo.
I just said, my
And it's the same
grandmother
thing with
was
the
Swiss.
Gregorian chants.
So
and
you're
the
trying
parishes.
to replicate or recreate the echo
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, the same thing with the Gregorian chants in the churches.
Bill.
Cathedral.
Oh, Bill.
What?
No echo.
Where does yodeling start? You saying?
When did it
I got a
start?
Where?
phone call.
Oh, at Riverview.
No, I mean,
At Riverview it started.
You're talking about when yodeling started? I
where
have no idea.
was it?
Oh,
Swiss? What's
He just
mountains?
said he was just
Yes,
he just said
yes,
that. He
yes,
just said,
yeah,
and the
excuse
Alps
me.
they used to yodel because it was
See that? See
he's
that?
yodeling.
Kate yodeling.
Yeah.
She's
You remember that? Oh, John's not here. Remember that line from Yankee Doodle Dandy where he's on vacation and he's yodeling?
Yeah.
And he said, "What's yodeling?" He said, "It's hog calling with frosting on it." That's all it is. By the way, the family we're talking about was the Schmidt family.
Schmitz, there you go.
They,
Schmitz.
they, Can you imagine all that land that
Sure.
they owned all that
They sure did. Yep.
with one purchase?
Yep.
You know, they could pick up, I don't know how many acres, but, you know, from Belmont almost all the way to
Yeah.
Addison.
And then
to
from
Western.
the carousel it started booming and they put in an attraction called Creation. We took a ride through a simulation of what they felt creation looked like, and then right next to that was Hades. So after you got out creation, went for a ride through hell, and then where the Bobs were, they originally it was the Monitor and the Merrimack. They had recreations of the Civil War battleships, and nightly the battleships would fight, and you'd
Were these
vote for the
automatic
winner.
or
yeah,
robot?
well, whatever they used in those days, however they did them, yeah, whatever technology they had. But these were all big attractions, and then later on they realized, like with so many other parks that followed after, the money was in thrill rides.
Well, here's a
That's what
question
people
for you.
liked.
Did that predate like Coney Island?
Coney Island started right around the same time. Right around the same time Coney Island got started and the boardwalk in New Jersey and all that. And Little Egypt from the exposition, from the Columbian Exposition, was so successful that Coney Island had 25 of them. They had 25,
Wow.
they had 25 little girls that said
25.
they were all little Egypts.
Little
yeah, yeah.
cooch
Yeah,
dancers,
yeah,
they
yeah,
call
yeah.
them.
Yeah, hoochie coochie dancers.
All the
yeah,
boss's
yeah.
daughters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I lived in New England, right there, right
the
on the
boardwalk?
ocean, right on the
Okay.
boardwalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in the Army, I was stationed there.
So it was a successful thing and it
And it
made
was-
money.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
reminded me of Riverview.
You know, the other thing, too, that people sort of forget was that it was employment for the local people.
Absolutely.
You know, the
Sure.
alderman there was Alderman Weber,
Charlie Weber.
Riverview had, I
Charlie
think,
Weber ran that whole thing towards
Yeah,
the end
and
there.
his wife was like the treasurer or
Right.
something like that.
how many people worked there in season? Like during the summer months, I don't know, but I know all year round they had 10 full-time people that worked,
Did
10
they?
people
Yeah.
full-time that worked year round
Yeah.
at Riverview.
You know, now
Yeah.
that we're on this subject of this, I had my kids grow up in the northwest suburbs, and of course it was a big thing. Entertainment.
Sure.
Sure.
These weekend or week places would come in and set up their rides, and that was great for the kids because Riverview had been shut down and Kittyland, it was too far away so that the kids would go there. And I, being in the career that I am and was, I watched my kids very, very closely because that old thing of, what do the police call it? Looking at somebody and knowing that they're not a very nice person.
Yeah, yeah. Don't look at me
and
like that.
We had a lot of problems
Yeah, you looked
with
right
kids
at you.
at that time. And-
Hey, John, excuse me, but before I forget it, John, later on, are you going to give us a sample of carnival language?
Will I?
John speaks Carney,
So do you.
limited Carney.
Yeah. You know, we
They have their own language.
We learned that in Boy Scouts.
Well, this was always a problem, and these guys touching the kids. In other words, they tried to help them, and they touch them, and
You know.
some of these guys would always end up locked up, and
You know where they had sort of, you know,
questionable.
scary, questionable. That's the word. At carnivals, you know, people who would set up and then tear it down, and also, it seems like the riding clubs, you know, and stable people like that. You know, Ellen Brock, whatever happened to her? You know.
That's always been a problem
Yeah.
on the backstretch of all of the tracks.
You mentioned
Right
Riverview.
now, that's what Kate does for me.
Yeah.
You mentioned Riverview closing, which we all know took place in 1967. Really abruptly, they just closed it at the end of the season. In
Yeah.
October, they shut down.
What's the story behind that? Do you think mainly real estate or a lot more?
There was a lot of different reasons about that. Some of them said the city wanted the property. Some of them said it had just been losing money and crime. People were getting afraid to come to the park. It was no longer becoming a safe spot. Things were getting vandalized over there, and they just decided that would be it. They're going to end Riverview. So 67, they closed down, and the only ride they saved from the whole entire park was the carousel, which is over in Six Flags in Georgia. That's the only thing they saved. Everything else got bulldozed
scrapped?
under. Yeah. So then we had, for a few years there, we had really no major parks in Chicago. But then around 1972, a California businessman named Mr. Robert Brindle, he took his family on a trip to Knott's Berry Farm in California, and he got the idea that, Chicago is open for the market of a major amusement park, and I got this idea, but I want to put one inside and make it temperature controlled and something they can use year round. So the old Chicago idea was born out in Bolingbrook. And he got the idea for that. He tried to sell it to the village of Bolingbrook, and at first Bolingbrook rejected it. He says, this is going to put Bolingbrook on the map and everything. And first he says, no, we don't really want an amusement park. He says, no, this is a different idea. It's going to be a park. It's going to be indoor. It's going to be clean. It's going to be sanitized. It's going to be a shopping center indoor, something no one's ever had before. And he was right about that. And then Naperville said, yeah, if they don't want it, we'll take it. Well, then when Bolingbrook saw Naperville going after it, they said, yep, we'll take it. So Bolingbrook got it. They got it. And there again, it was modeled after the Columbian Exposition, the way the building was built and the way it was done and everything. And he had a good idea, but he fell short. The thing opened up in 75. It took them like 2 years to build it. They got it going, and right from the get-go, they were running in the red, with just losing money.
Why was that? Because demographics?
Well, part of the reason was they just built it a little too far out. It
Right.
wasn't easy to
Yeah,
get to.
yeah.
I worked there for a couple of years when I was a kid. I worked up there for a couple of years, and it was just literally in the middle of cornfields.
Yeah.
That's all there really was, nothing
Yeah.
there. So you
Yeah.
didn't really have good access to get to it, and then another part of the reason was the park was all indoors, so you really have no room for expansion. You couldn't put in bigger roller coasters or bigger attractions or different things. It was indoors. There was so much you could do, and that was it.
Yeah.
They did have a lot of firsts. They had the first corkscrew roller coaster. They called it the Chicago Loop. It was the first roller coaster that went upside down. We had the first Wendy's franchise. The first Wendy's in the Chicago area was at Old Chicago. So they had a lot of firsts there. They brought in a lot of entertainment and stuff too to that park, but it just wasn't successful.
The Blues Brothers?
Yeah, his the part of what he made a mistake was with the shopping center. He wanted no major stores. He wanted small boutiques and shops and that kind of thing, and that's what he got. But it just wasn't working out. It didn't work out. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So within a very short time, within 5 years' time, the park went bankrupt and they closed. And then the building stayed vacant for 6 years, and then 6 years later they finally tore it down.
Was that the building they used in the making the Blues Brothers?
No.
You remember?
They never made the Blues Brothers there. The only movie they made there was a movie called The Fury, with Kirk Douglas and Andrew
yeah.
Stevens. They filmed that there for a little while, and that's probably the only film footage they have. Well, there are some other films of it that people took home movies of, but the only film where it's actually in a movie is in that movie. It's called
The,
The
the
Fury.
Blues,
Where
the
did
Blues
that
Brothers were out
Blues Brothers
south.
film?
Yeah, that was out south.
Yeah, they never made
Harvey,
the
I
Blues
think.
Brothers.
Yeah,
there.
Harvey. Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh.
Yeah.
Harvey D. I wasn't at Bolingbrook once, and that was just too far away.
Yeah, see, that was the
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the
that
other-
was,
the
that
other
was part of the
one-
problem.
The other one is Star of the Village that had a. I guess the
Well,
real-
what really was the kiss of death for Old Chicago was Great America. The next year, 1976, for the bicentennial, Great America opened up, and Great America had it in for Old Chicago because when they put their roller coaster in, which was a looped roller coaster with the two loops, upside down loops in it, they wanted it named the Chicago Loop. But Old Chicago already had the rights to that, so Great America went for patriotic, and they named theirs the Turn of the Century. And then the next year, after the park was there, they redid it again, and they called it the Demon. And they painted it black, they put a tunnel in, they put 2 more loops in, and Great America then, too, realized very quickly that the money was in the thrill rides. That was it. People wanted bigger, better, faster roller coasters, and that's what they do, you know.
Yeah.
Was
that
Santa's
was it.
Village still in existence?
Santa's Village was there for a while, and actually what they did for a while was they promoted it as 2 parks for the price of 1. It was Santa's Village and Adventureland.
Yeah.
It's also been reopened in recent years.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
My
Are they
Yeah,
still
yes,
open?
yeah. Well, I was there last year with my grandkids.
Oh, yeah?
yeah, my
Okay.
my daughter took the grandkids out there twice this month.
I like the shooting gallery, so that's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, they had some neat stuff there. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the story, sort of a sideline thing, when Billy Rose, had the, what was his, it was a water carnival or something?
Aquacade.
Aquacade.
The
There you go.
Aquacade. They had that at the 39 World's Fair, the Aquacade. Billy Rose's Aquacade.
Okay, just prior to that, then evidently, he accepts a commission to go to Texas, and I think they were celebrating their centennial, like 1936.
Yeah, that would
1836.
fit, sure.
So he said, we got to get some cowboys out here to really show off their shooting, So anyway, so they sort of audition a few people. None of the cowboys can shoot very accurate. So one of his aides says, those guys at Coney Island, that's all they do is they shoot, in the shooting gallery. So they import a whole bunch
They
of
bring
guys
all these
from-
guys from Brooklyn to
from
come out
Brooklyn,
to be
yeah.
cowboys.
So he says, well, boy, he said, I got a kick in the pants. And he said, so one night, his office was in a trailer, and somebody runs in there and says, hey, you got a riot. And he opens the door, and of course, everything is always called a midway, from our midway. Everybody is fighting. As far as he can see, they're fighting. He says, what the hell do? We don't have enough security. The guy says, you call the Rangers, Texas Rangers. So he calls the Texas Ranger. Yeah, we'll send somebody over. A half an hour later, one guy shows up. You know the story? He says, you call the Rangers? He said, yeah. He said, can you stop? He said, yeah, I'll stop it. He said, where's all your men? He said, oh, they just sent me. He said, I got a whole park full of people fighting, and they sent one guy. He said, well, you only reported one riot, The guy started walking down the gangway. People said, hey, the Rangers. When he got to the very end, everybody had stopped fighting.
That's one of their mottos: one riot, one ranger.
Yeah.
One riot, one
Gee,
ranger.
just like today.
Yeah, just like today, yeah.
The
It's
steal
not the
of people that these guys couldn't shoot. I don't know if I told you guys, but I've got the guns that
Duncan Ronaldo.
Duncan Ronaldo, Cisco Kid had. And when I got them, and that's another story, the gun belt was loaded with buckshot. And that's how he would, when he'd ride into the arena,
Oh, yeah.
and they'd throw up plates or balloons or whatever.
He couldn't miss.
He couldn't miss.
Yeah.
He couldn't miss with those.
Duncan Rinaldo, for the benefit of most of our audience, former actor, Western. I believe he was of, some say Mexican, some say Spanish origin. And he did the Cisco Kid, both in B movies and in television for years. Tut Tut, nothing but butternut bread was their sponsor here.
And Leo Carrillo, or Leo Carrillo, was his
Pancho.
sidekick, Pancho.
Pancho.
He was
He's the
funny.
comic relief.
Who was Pancho's horse? I remember Diablo.
Loco.
Was Cisco, Loco was
Loco,
Pancho's?
yeah, Loco.
I can remember Diablo as the
Diablo and
Cisco
Loco.
Kids, but I can't remember Pancho's.
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody wants to see a different Cisco Kid, 1928 or 29 movie in Old Arizona, early talkie with Warren Baxter as the Cisco Kid, which comes from an O. Henry story.
Robin Hood of the Old
A
West.
very different Cisco than we're used to on
Oh, yeah.
television.
He probably
seen that?
was from Brooklyn, too.
No. He sounds
was-
very Hispanic, but I
he
mean,
was not such a good guy.
no.
in the,
You see it?
No.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
familiar
it's-
with the story.
Don't tell anybody. Don't give any of this away. But it makes me think of one more thing we got to say before we hit our next break about our Midway. Since I was born over there at the university, right at Langen Hospital, I know a lot about us. But anyway, Flo Ziegfeld, the great entertainment man, got his start over there
Yeah.
on the Midway. He had his Eugene Sandow the strongman, was his exhibit, and he, I guess according to the story, he wasn't doing so well till he figured out, let's do some posing instead of lifting heavy, making strength. And that was kind of the origin of modern physique development bodybuilding contests. So anyway.
The Midway had, the original Midway now I'm talking about, they had a lot of strange exhibits. It had never been done before. And it was actually done by, there was a young businessman, and he was like 29 years old at the time of the 1893 fair. His name was Saul Bloom. And he's the one that got the whole thing together. He had a little attraction called the Algerian Village, and that was at the Paris Exposition in the 1880s, and it was very successful. So they got the idea, let's do the same thing here in Chicago, but let's expand on it and make it bigger. So they had the Algerian Village, they had the Streets of Cairo, which was very popular. You had the Eskimos. You brought a lot of the attractions at the Midway were people attractions.
Yeah.
You know, people from the South Sea Islands, hula dancers, Eskimos, Inuits, you know, different people from around the world, because you came to the fair to see all this.
And they lived there too.
Yeah.
They lived, yeah.
They actually brought the Algerians over a year before the fair even opened. They brought them over too early, and they actually had them put them to work on some of the buildings for the expositions. They didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Good work. Good
So they
idea.
brought them over a little too early, yeah.
One of the things that's still left over from White City is the Edelweiss downtown.
And the
Oh, pardon me, gentlemen. We'll be right back after these messages of interest and importance.
Gentlemen, who came in?
Yeah.
Friends, are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the Printing Store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. Phil will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now, his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price lists, NCR forms, sale sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And the services include 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And he also has a complete bindery service, which includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, see or call Phil Berry at the Printing Store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. And once again, they are located at Madison Street and Clarence Avenue, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And it's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, or call 708-383-3638 and ask to speak to.
Now, back to our discussion.
We're talking about
Check.
Institute Museum of Science and Industry.
Yeah, we were just, during the break, we were just talking about a couple of the buildings and some of the things left over from the Columbian Exposition. I hear people say, oh, there are parts of the Ferris wheel, the original Ferris wheel, in Lake Michigan. It's not true.
No.
They didn't scrap it and put it in Lake Michigan, because the Ferris wheel actually, after the fair,
else.
it still ran for 3 months after the fair because it was so successful and made so much money. The fair itself cost 50 cents to get in to the Columbian Exposition, and to ride the Ferris wheel cost you another 50 cents. So that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
Sure, in
it was
1893, that worked out to about $11.70 to ride the Ferris wheel. So that was a lot. But people did it nonetheless, and it didn't open right away. The fair opened in May. The wheel didn't get going until about this time, about middle of June, when they actually got the Ferris wheel running. But when it ran almost 24 hours nonstop. The Midway, they would keep open as long as there were people there. They kept it open until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. They would let people stay at the Midway because it was all electric lit and everything, so they'd let it run. But anyway, after the fair, they moved it over to Hyde Park, the Ferris wheel. And the Depression hit, and it was not that good. They dropped the price down for a ride down to 25 cents. And they were actually going to put like a beer garden there and make it Ferris Wheel Park. But some people in the neighborhood petitioned to have it taken down and carted away, which they did do. They finally found a buyer for it, and it wound up in 1904 at the St. Louis World's Fair. And then after that, in 1906, they dynamited it and then finally got rid of it and scrapped it.
They did find a foundation, though, on the Midway for the fire.
They did find over on the football field there, where the Monsters in the Midway, where they play. They did find some of the foundation of it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
original foundation
yeah.
from
It
1893.
was at
Yeah.
Woodlawn and the
Yeah.
Midway.
Mhm.
Was the original World's Fair for a couple of years up on Clark Street, or I'm going to say around Diversia?
Yeah,
That was up there
that's
for something.
Bob. That's
Yeah.
where I think they moved it to.
Maybe just 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
that
It wasn't long. It wasn't
Never
long. It
made
didn't stay,
money.
yeah, it
No,
didn't
and
stay
it
there
didn't-
long.
It didn't make
Yeah, it
money.
didn't stay
And
long.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's interesting. The area was known as Wright's Woods, and that's where the street name came from, Wrightwood.
That's
You
interesting.
know, and it was east of Clark, north of Wrightwood, that whole area there.
Well,
And,
They also found they used to have the gondolas in 1933, and they found the foundations in Lake Michigan for that too. So it's
what you said, gondolas?
yeah, they had a gondola ride. I don't know much
missed that.
about it.
Oh,
Oh, they had those in the 1893 fair too on the lagoon. They had the gondolas
Okay.
and stuff like
But
that.
they also had some foundations when they built the islands out there in the lake for the water intake. So I don't know which is which.
You mean like Northerly Island, formerly
No,
Miggs?
that's-
yeah.
The peninsula you're talking about? Okay. They had to build the water intake, and they had basically some kind of conveyance out there, and they used to convey the dirt and everything else back from the digging, and then they used to transport people out there to do the work.
You're talking, excuse me, 68th Street crib?
They were all probably all. Yeah, that one's particular, but there was other
Well,
ones too.
that's the one that had the fire and explosion, killed a whole bunch of people
Yeah.
in 1909.
Yeah, that's,
I was just out there, as a matter of fact. First time I've been out in the lake in a long time.
they have 4 or 5 intakes. One's up by Evanston, which you don't hear about, and then there's 2 off of 68th Street,
Yeah.
and then there's one downtown. And downtown was sort of dumb because they had a contract to do some work on the intake from the lake shore, and they told them not to dewater the intake, and the contractor dewatered, and it collapsed. And now they got to take everything in from the from inside from the lake itself.
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see anything from the Columbian Exposition, come this Saturday to the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago
Your statue.
at
Yeah.
5218 Southwestern,
Yeah.
and we have intact the statue of Christopher Columbus.
Now, is that the
And
statue?
this, I'm not inviting
Do you know
anyone
the history?
from the
Yeah, go
Italian
ahead.
community because you can't have it.
Yeah. Now, that's the statue that was rescued from the fire.
Yes.
Because they had the fire at the cold storage building July 10th, 1893, and that was there, and then they actually rescued it from that.
They put it
Is
in
that
front
where,
of
is that where that statue was?
Yeah, that's where it was.
from?
Well, they had
Yeah.
a few statues of Columbus
Yeah,
around.
that's what I thought.
But that's
yeah.
one that got rescued and saved. Yeah.
What was the material, Bob? Because I've seen this thing.
What that one is made out of, I don't know. Now, most of the statues and the
No.
fountain statue and everything was all staff.
Yeah.
It was all that temporary mixture stuff.
Oh,
No,
well,
this-
this stuff I could probably turn it so it was something very light.
I-
What
Well,
was
maybe
it?
it is-
Ken,
it
they
could be
told me
staff
what
then.
it was.
Maybe it
well,
is the staff.
Well,
Yeah.
it looks, it's metal,
No.
but it's a real light metal.
It's,
what
it's
what would
very,
be a
very
light?
light, and they told me what it was. I can't
Yeah,
think of
I
it
can't
right
think of
now.
it either.
But you
It
could
never
pick that
been
thing
used.
up if it wasn't for the
Yeah.
bottom of the statue that's loaded with
Yeah.
some steel.
Also,
No.
that
I can't think of the name of
Yeah,
it.
that statue was in front of the firehouse at 6345 South Wentworth.
It's
And-
moved around. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been around.
I've
Yeah.
taken pictures of it.
Yeah.
And it's been restored, and
Yeah.
it's in excellent condition
Yeah.
now.
So there are some things left from the Columbian Exposition here and there, and that they're
Yeah.
around.
I got photographs at home.
Of what?
The Columbian Exposition.
That's you took the photographs when you were there.
Yeah,
You were one of the
My
rich
dad
people
did.
because
I
there aren't many photographs at Columbian Exposition because for a very good reason they had a $5 permit to bring your camera in. If you wanted
that's
to bring
interesting.
if you wanted to bring your own camera
That's
in
interesting.
1893, and people had them, you had those
Oh,
little
it's
brownie box
33.
cameras.
This is 33.
Well, 33 is a little different, but in
Oh, yeah.
1893, if you wanted to bring your camera in, it was a $5 permit because they wanted to sell their photographs.
Yeah.
The stereo views were real popular at that
Yeah.
time, and B.W. Kilburn, a company, they had the contract for the stereographs of the fair. So they wanted to sell stereographs, they wanted to sell lithographs, and something else original from the fair was picture postcards. First time they ever sold them was at the fair, and they wanted to sell their photographs. So that's why most of the photos you see of the exposition now are taken from stereographs.
Yeah.
Or like half of the stereograph they use, and it's
I
photo
got a
that they have.
photograph of Hitler at the Olympics. And
My brother too. A strange story about that. Nothing to do with what we're talking about. But the first house my brother moved into when they got married, they bought their first house, and in the crawl space of the house was a box. They opened up the box. There was a pair of spats in it, men's spats, and there were all these little photographs. And they took them and looked at them, and it was all photographs of the Olympics. Of the Hindenburg, of Hitler, people standing up doing the salute. They got Jesse Owens. Well, not the Hindenburg, but one of the dirigibles.
The Hindenburg. I know
Yeah.
the
It
Hindenburg.
could have
Yeah.
been. This is 36.
Yeah.
I thought he said Hindenburg. Hindenburg was dead.
Dead.
By that. I thought you meant Hindenburg,
Yeah.
the man.
Oh, well, they,
I don't know if it was the Hindenburg or if it's one of the dirigibles, but anyway, they got the pictures of that and all that. And they're all unpublished photos. So somebody took a trip there
Somebody
to the Olympics and took them. And,
yeah.
I think they had the Hindenburg.
how many marks did they charge to take those pictures at the Olympics?
I have no idea.
well, the camera was expensive because the stereo camera at that time was not cheap.
Oh no, professional people only had them for stereographs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. That was something that was not
Yeah,
available
yeah,
to.
yeah.
The Germans made them.
Yeah, for the stereo views. Yeah, it was a big thing because that was your entertainment. You bought those and you brought them home and you
The
looked at them in
History
3D.
Channel. The History Channel's got. They have been running this on the Olympics and the whole Hitler thing and
Sure.
and that, and
Yeah.
it's very very interesting
Oh,
for
yeah.
kids
You
now.
know what else is interesting about the Columbian Exposition? It's the first time they issued commemorative
Coins.
postage stamps
Yeah.
And a coin.
and coins.
Yeah.
I have a
and for
coin.
2 years, yeah. And they're
And they actually redid the coin because the original coin had a picture that they thought was Columbus, and it turned out it was a very ugly picture of Queen Isabella. And they didn't like it. And they were selling him at the women's building because it was Queen Isabella, and they said, she's very ugly.
Are you sure it wasn't a good picture of her?
And they didn't like it. And
it was
and then what they did is they actually took the
photographer
coin and
didn't do a
they
good
put
job.
Columbus's facsimile on it.
Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Is there a difference, like because they minted it for 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
92 and
Yeah.
93.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably very collectible.
Well, no
Yeah.
one knows exactly what Columbus looked like.
No.
There are no paintings of Columbus from his lifetime that exist.
Oh,
All the paintings we see of Columbus were done 20, 30, 50 years after he died.
How about
and they were
photographs?
they talked to people who knew him and
Yeah.
but that's why you see pictures. Every painting you see of Columbus looks different because
Well, I knew his
every
mother, and they
artist
said he
interprets-
resembled her. So they said he resembled his mother, and I knew her. She was very nice. So
He looks a little like
Isabella's the same way because anybody who painted the painted nicely of her.
that was another big attraction at the Columbian Exposition was the Columbus ships.
Oh,
they had,
sure,
they had the
yeah.
replicas of the 3 ships. They had the Nina, the Pinta, and Santa Maria,
Yeah.
and they were sent over from Spain.
and the Titanic.
No, they didn't have the
the
Titanic.
real thing. No.
Now,
They did have a White Star Line.
Titanic?
They had a White Star Line building there, but Titanic not yet. That would be a few years later. Yeah.
Well, they
And
also
then-
had the Viking ship in '93.
Oh, yeah.
The Viking
that's
ship,
famous.
when they got wind of this at the fair, the Vikings, the Norwegians said, "Wait a minute, you know what? We were actually here
Leif
before
Erikson.
Columbus."
Yeah, right.
Leif Erikson.
So they said, "We would like to do this." So they actually built the ship, the Viking ship, and they sailed the thing across. They actually
Right,
sailed
they-
theirs. Now the Columbus ships were actually towed part way,
Yeah.
and then when they got closer to Lake Michigan down that way, then they had them kind of float in on their own. But the Viking ship. They actually sailed the thing across.
Well,
They were
let's do
tough, and they tried stopping them a few different times because the Italian community said, "No, we don't want that thing there." So they tried actually preventing it to get to the exposition, but it made it, and it's still there. If you want to go see it, it's in Geneva, Illinois.
Right.
Geneva, Illinois. They got.
Has it ever been
They have
restored, Bob?
they have no. They haven't restored it yet. The dragon is still missing from it and that, but they do have the ship there.
Museum of Science and
Yeah.
Industry.
Now the Columbus ships met not such a fate, a nice fate. They wound up after the fair still on exhibit in Jackson Harbor and that kind of thing, and they kind of fell into disrepair.
Yeah.
They were sold to a couple of different people, but nobody ever really managed to do anything too much with them. And then they just kind of fell apart, and they got rid of them,
Well,
and
it
that was the
doesn't
end
make
of
any
them.
difference because nobody knew what they looked like anyway.
Well,
The caravels. Yeah.
the caravels, they didn't know. Well,
they
based
They
them
had a general idea of what.
based them on what ships looked like at
Yeah,
that
at the
time.
time,
Which they had
yeah.
a pretty good
They had a
idea.
pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But they had no
were
drawings.
Built, they were built for
These weren't even
They
caravels,
had
were
no
they?
drawings.
The Santa Maria was the flagship, but the other 2 ships were smaller ships.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 that actually made it back too.
Right. Santa
Santa
Maria
got
where?
wrecked.
But the,
Wrecked on where? In the West Indies?
Somewhere in the West Indies
Yeah.
it got
but the
wrecked. yeah.
Dragonhead is at the Museum of Science and Industry.
The Museum of Science and Industry, if you go into Museum of Science and Industry, has a fantastic collection of Columbian Exposition stuff that's left over. Because now you got to remember, the fair was only there for 6 months. A big attraction at the fair, too, was stuffed animals.
Yeah.
stuffed animal exhibits, and they had the anthropological exhibit where they had the recreation of the mastodon, and they had octopus, and all these creatures you could never see unless you came to the fair and you saw all these things. So after the fair was over, they didn't know what to do with all this stuff. So the Museum of Science and Industry became what they called the Field Columbian Exposition.
Yeah.
So all the sculpture and the paintings and the art collection was all taken out and sent back to Europe and wherever it all came from, and they put in all the stuffed animal exhibits and everything like that. And then you had the Art Institute building, which was originally designed to be an art museum. So they started putting the art collection into that, and then Marshall Field footed the money for the Field Museum in 1922 or 23 or so, right
early
around there.
20s, yeah.
Then everything came out of the Science and Industry. It came out of there, went into the Field Museum, and then
It's
they
all
made that the
disrepair.
Museum of Science and Industry.
But
Right.
the other thing was the fact that he wanted to build a field museum downtown, and because of the Burnham plan, he went on the outside of the Burnham plan area. So now, with the Lucas Museum, it's at the same area. So now it's not in the Burnham plan at all, and it's actually park property. So it has nothing to do with the Burnham plan, but it's park property.
Yeah.
And it's not free and clear because it's a parking lot. So nothing free about a parking lot. You know, so
No,
it's all hypocritical.
Well, also when they expanded the Art Institute, they built a building east of the railroad tracks.
Right, that was
And the
also,
judge gave them permission to do that. And that should have never been allowed.
That was a no-no too. It shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they abused the privilege, I guess the best
Yeah.
way of putting it.
Yeah.
I have pictures. I did a history on all the firehouses. And by the way, we had fun trying to, because the Columbian Exposition had their own fire department, and the Century of Progress had their own fire department, and they just were localized. They didn't respond outside, but they, of course, did have that terrible fire in the cold storage building.
Yeah, they had their own police too, the Columbian Guard.
Columbian
Yeah,
Guard.
they had them, yeah. And the Columbian Guard used to get asked all kind of strange questions. People would ask them. And it's so funny because they have like listed these questions that they actually remembered and wrote down. And one lady said, "Where would I find the Pope?" And she asked the Columbian Guard, and he said, "Well, you'll find him in Italy." And she said, "Well, how do I get there?" And he says, "Take the stairway that goes under the lagoon."
The other
Another lady
still
asked,
wandering around.
another lady asked,
She's
she's, "Where
never
do I
been
find?"
seen before.
She's, "Where do I find the artificial people?" And what she was looking for was the wax museum, because they had a wax museum in the Moorish Palace.
Follow the artificial
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
the funniest one I heard about was at the Illinois Railroad Museum, and one guy asked the conductor, "Does the train always follow the tracks?"
No, occasionally it goes off.
What I want to see, you're talking about all those exotic exhibits in the Midway, an Algerian village and thing. One of the reasons that was attractive is 1893, you're just before the coming of motion pictures. So people who had never left their hometown had never seen anything before.
That's why-
there was no way to visually see anything,
No.
not just before television, but even the
That's
motion
true.
picture.
Yeah.
So you would pay to see something from the other side of the world because there was no other way that you could
That's
see it.
exactly right. Right.
Yeah.
That's
That's
exactly
where
what they did. Yeah.
that's where AC Kurt
That's why
started.
fairs now are no longer the money makers they once were, because we got TV, we got the internet, we got
Yeah.
National
Yeah.
Geographic.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to do that
You
anymore.
don't have to leave the
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at one time it was a big thing.
You went there to see things that you otherwise would never
Yeah.
have an opportunity to see.
Yeah.
There was a big fight between Edison and
Over
Tesla.
the electric. Yeah.
And Edison lost, thank God.
Edison lost out, but he kind of won because he said, "Okay, fine, you're not using my power, but the only bulbs available at that time were Edison Mazda lamps." And he says, "Okay, you can't use my bulbs. So you got the power, but you can't use my bulbs." So they actually had to develop their own light bulbs for the Columbian Exposition.
But they did have DC current downtown for a long time, and they finally,
Yeah, you're right.
it was about 10 years. They finally
Edison
got
was
rid of
still well represented at the fair. He had the Edison building, he had Edison phonographs, the Edison electric, Edison motion pictures.
it. He was a
So
nasty
you had
guy,
them
though,
there.
yeah. He
Yeah.
was not known for being friendly.
He wasn't a real businessman.
Yeah.
Edison wasn't a real businessman. He was an inventor, and that's what he was.
Edison was it?
Edison, yeah.
I know that there was a big fight between him and his former student Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
He was all in favor of the alternating current.
Yes.
Edison was sticking with the direct current.
Well,
And I heard the story that Edison had an elephant electrocuted to show how
yeah.
They had a
terrible.
film of it.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Let
they
me
have film of it.
finish. Let me finish. Before to show how bad this alternating current was. Well, I just saw a film about elephants that show the actual electrocution of this poor creature.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So
I didn't
let's-
know
The problem with D.C. is if you had D.C., you would have had repetitious buildings about every 20
Oh,
miles.
all over the place, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the alternating current, you don't need so many of them.
Yeah.
So it was the wiser choice.
Yeah.
Now, the United Artists Theater, where I worked as security, one of my many side jobs in the 70s,
Oh, it's
we
all
had
high
Jaws
degree.
there. We had Jaws. We had
Yeah, I can see your jaws from here. Yeah, they're okay.
what else we had? Oh, Star Wars. Those pictures. Anyway, that was originally rigged for direct current. They said. They told me the building engineer did. So
Yeah.
it's torn down now, so no one has to worry about it.
Which one?
United Artists was on the southeast corner of Dearborn and Randolph.
Yeah. I mean,
They had been the Apollo at
United
one time.
Artists. That was the third or fourth United Artists building.
Yeah.
They had several before that. And they were torn down or burned down, whatever.
Well, I never worked at any of those.
yeah.
You didn't?
No,
The big thing at both of the fairs, we're talking now Columbian Exposition and Century of Progress, was smut. People liked the dirty stuff.
Yeah.
When you went to
No.
the Columbian Exposition, the big attraction was Little
Little
Egypt,
Egypt.
Jensen the
Little
Hoochie
Egypt,
Coochie. No one had ever seen anything like that. And there wasn't just one. There were a couple of them.
Sally Rand, too.
Well,
No,
now,
well,
that's a
that's
little
Sally
later.
Rand.
Now,
That's
Sally
Century
Rand,
of
I
Progress.
actually saw Sally Rand, but at the 1933 exhibit, Sally Rand was the big attraction doing her fan dance there. And the Century of Progress, now we're talking 33, which they held over for 2 years, the streets of Paris was where Sally Rand performed. That's where all the burlesque was and everything. And at that time, they didn't censor anything, so kids could get into this stuff. And when they held the fair over for the second year, they made them get rid of it all. They said, get rid of all the burlesque, clean it up. We want this more family-oriented. And they did, and they lost money.
Yeah.
The second year of the fair, 1934, they actually lost money. And Sally Rand said, see, they got rid of me, and look what happened, you know.
Yeah.
But I actually saw Sally Rand, of all places. Where was she? In the old Chicago Amusement Park in about 1971 when I worked there at the music hall. They had a special performance. It was like one weekend only, Sally Rand. And I thought, oh, this can't be Sally Rand. She's got to be 110 by now.
Yeah.
You know, but it was indeed her, still doing her
She probably
fan dance and
looked pretty
everything.
good too.
She did for her age. She still
Yeah.
looked good, and she still did her dance and everything. And then afterwards, I wish I had a photo or something. I wish I
Oh,
had.
yeah.
They do have a movie of her.
There's a film
Oh, yeah,
clip
there's a lot
of,
of- there's a lot of
yeah.
film
clips
And
of
it
her.
looks like she's nude. It does
Yeah,
look
well,
like
she
was.
Yeah,
was.
I
She
think.
was.
Yeah,
She always said she was never completely nude. She wore like a body stocking, and she wore like a sheer gown over the top of it, and it was done with lighting too. Like the lighting was dim and that kind
what
of
she
stuff.
had a saying, the
Misty.
Rand is quicker than the eye, remember?
She used to sign her photographs for her fans. She used to say, "From your favorite fan, Sally Rand." That's how she signed her
But
autograph.
if
yeah.
you look at the
Nice.
movies, though, you can't see a body shot. Yeah.
No.
No.
But I actually went up to her and I talked to her, and I says, "Are you the Sally Rand from Century?" She says, "Oh yes, honey, it's me. I'm the only one there ever was." And that's it. And I think she was just thrilled that some 20-year-old kid at the time knew who she was. Yeah.
Well, what was her one of her taglines was, "Once I took my pants off," she said, "I always made money," or something like that.
Yeah,
Well,
but
Ken,
burlesque-
Ken, Ken,
Sounds like Mayweather.
Ken, you
Burlesque made a
you
lot of
dated her,
money.
didn't
I
you?
dated her. Right. I have two of the pans.
That's right.
Let's
Yeah,
review what
they're
kind of
in this-
food and snack items came out of the.
Oh, Cracker Jacks,
was it-
shredded wheat,
Oh,
Aunt Jemima pancake
Tootsie
syrup,
Rolls?
and Aunt Jemima syrup.
Aunt
Tootsie
Jemima.
Tootsie
Rolls?
Rolls, no, not at the fair, not at the Columbian Exposition. They
Okay.
didn't, yeah. But you had a lot of stuff come out of the
Yeah,
Columbian Exposition.
But not so much out of the Century of Progress I've heard of.
Not too much, no, because
Yeah.
by then everything was already invented.
That's it.
Yeah, right.
Tremendous
They missed the
employment,
boat.
right.
They were
Wrigley's,
too, they were
Wrigley's
too late
chewing
to
gum.
invent anything.
Wrigley's chewing gum was in 1893. The Columbian
Now-
Exposition. So a lot of stuff
yeah.
came out of that fair.
That was sort of a
One mo-
strange story with Wrigley, how he got that gum going, because he was a peddler for soap, and he was giving free gum away, and he found out the gum was more popular than soap.
Yeah. Soap, yeah.
And
John Kushelko got a story about there's a certain pillar that's in Grant Park, isn't there? From the
Oh, that's the Mussolini Memorial. I refer to it as the Mussolini Memorial because when General Italo Balbo led the Italian aviators to attend the Century of Progress, which was a huge event, and it's lampooned in A Night at the Opera by the Marx Brothers. They do a parody of it, but they erected an obelisk or a pillar on the lakefront. It's still there.
It's still
to my
there.
knowledge, it's still there. I used to walk along there, and I was amazed because there's nothing really wrong with the fact that they commemorated the arrival of the
No.
Italian aviators, but it gives the date as in the year of our Lord,
Fascist year.
and then in it they give the date in the year of our Lord and the 11th, 1933, the 11th year of the fascist era, because
era.
Mussolini came to power in 1922.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed that
it
it's,
hasn't been
that during the
vandalized
war
or-
that a group of patriotic citizens didn't pitch it into the lake, you know,
Yeah.
because of that. But in a way, it's interesting that it's still there. I always refer to it as the Mussolini Memorial.
There's a
Yeah.
street too,
because
isn't
of
there
the
a Balboa
fascist-
Street?
Yeah.
There is Balboa.
Balboa.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
at.
What's funny
Balboa.
was the fact his
Balboa.
son came over because there's no mention of Balboa in Italy.
Yeah,
It actually
but-
had to come over here to.
yeah. But Chicago has the street,
Italo Balbo.
and people do
Balboa Drive.
mispronounce it as Balboa, but it's
Balboa.
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 And
Yeah.
it's
No
right
A.
at the
No A at the end.
what today would be the Hilton.
About 8th Street or 7th Street or something
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
that.
seven.
the
Right, it's the
former
south,
seventh,
the north
1968
border of the Hilton.
The 1968
Yes.
Democratic Convention altercation took place on Michigan and Balboa. I
Yeah,
believe was-
right.
They
I know,
required that.
I happened to be there at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when Tom says he was there, he was there.
He was there.
was.
No, he was there, right there.
I was there.
I would-
Boy, was I.
On duty?
Yes. Yep.
I was courting my wife at the time. We were in a restaurant, and all the National Guard came in there, and they were talking about the riots and stuff like that because they were on duty at the time. So the trouble is that restaurant's gone. It's just
You mean
sort
the
of
police riot? Remember,
Whatever you wanna
Yeah, it
call
was a
it.
police riot.
what's his name, Walker?
The
Dan
police,
Walker?
Yeah,
the
Dan
police
Walker.
riot was a Haymarket riot.
No.
No, no,
No,
no.
the 68 convention.
Oh, that
The
too.
yeah, they refer to it as a police riot.
Yeah,
the media
Dan
called it a
Dan
police
Walker,
riot.
Yeah.
who it should be noted went to jail.
Big talker.
Yeah, embezzlement.
Oh.
But it was mishandled. I guess the best way of putting it. But
Well, when you got people coming somewhere to
Yeah,
cause
I know.
trouble,
well,
Is it a surprise that it
the
happens?
cops have to defend themselves, but no matter how you look at it.
who?
The cops.
Oh no, we're robots.
Yeah, I
Don't you
know. They still got that fight going on.
Yeah, we know.
You
Yeah.
have to make a decision the split second that then the attorneys and newspaper men get to meditate on for months and months and weeks and
Well,
analyze what he should have done, how he should have done it.
Yeah, well, the old
was he
saying,
too quick on the draw? And
the old saying goes, shoot first and then worry about it later. Because if you're dead, then it don't help you too much.
Well, one of our classmates from our high school class at St. Rita, Greg Kyritz, was standing right next to Tom.
Yeah,
he
he
caught
was-
the brick because he was the tallest guy out there.
Yeah,
On
he
the
was.
side, you know.
That was one of the most serious injuries that occurred there. He caved the whole side of his face in.
And he was in hospital for a long time.
Yes, he was.
And his wife was in a family away at the time, visiting him, and then, what's now plus. Well, now we're on that top topic briefly till brief break. We had these peaceful demonstrators doing things like throwing bags of human feces and urine at
Yeah.
people, at the police, spraying them in the face with Easy Off oven cleaner. And there was one trick. One guy, at least one guy, lost an eye. They took a ping pong ball. You crisscrossed these sharp nails with it.
I remember seeing that when they displayed
Yeah.
that on television. Yeah.
They throw that, but it's a police riot.
Well, plus the misinformation. I mean, of course, they perfected it today, but at the time, you would get there was a woman girl. They called her Hanoi Hannah. She wore like the World War I helmet and fatigues, and she would show up every night in front of the Hilton. She'd take the microphone, and she'd come up with some story that wasn't true at all, but to incite the crowd. Like she would say one night, I remember, she said, I just returned from Lincoln Park where they were beating a demonstration of nuns and priests. One nun is dead, one is serious injured, and it was all just made up. And then the crowd would go.
What percentage of the Chicago police force would have been Catholic at that time?
Yeah,
I mean,
but,
how likely was it that a group of
most of
Chicago
them, right.
police would be attacking
Right,
priests?
but
and
and
Very
the thing is,
likely.
we
Very
just
likely.
incited the crowd. Yeah.
I don't think so.
The Hearst was notorious for yellow journalism, as you put it back, and this is probably the epitome of yellow journalism with the riots and stuff like
I
that.
was in the
Now,
Fairland.
now it's even better because now they perfected it even more.
Someone will say pictures don't lie. Well, they do if you edit them, take parts out, put them in different sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to a fire one time and watched it, and I read about a newspaper next day, and I could have swore I was in a different place.
Well, yeah.
Was it?
My, my dad said that you go to a ball game, read about the economy in the paper. Is this the same game I was at?
William Randolph Hearst had a great line about the accuracy of journalism, and I think Orson Welles uses it in Citizen Kane. and that is when he sends the reporter down to Cuba to get stories about the Civil War in Cuba.
Atrocities.
And he sends a telegram back to him and says, "I've been here, Chief. There is no Civil War in Cuba." And Hearst wired back, "You provide the pictures, I'll provide the war."
That was
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Another thing is, since we're on the topic, I realize now where the term Gestapo tactics come from was Ribicoff. Abraham Ribicoff was the senator from Connecticut. He was on addressing the convention about the Gestapo tactics that were happening in the streets of the city. I thought the Gestapo was almost like an FBI in Germany, wasn't it?
It was the
State
elite crew.
police.
It was the elite
It was the
guys.
secret-
Yeah.
So I mean,
secret
the
state
first place is
police.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I remember they showed Daley. The microphone
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
on, but good thing it wasn't. He was
Yeah.
in at his place at the convention. Richard
Yeah.
J. I mean now.
Yeah, what was he saying? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the Gestapo was the elite
Oh,
crew.
darn.
The
Yeah.
Gestapo was not a uniform force.
No.
To my knowledge, the Gestapo was all. It was. In fact, the term Gestapo comes Geheime Staatspolizei,
Yeah.
the secret state police. So by definition, they didn't wear uniforms. They were undercover agents.
But they did have some. They had SS.
The SS
scrubbers.
was different.
Yeah.
The SS and the Gestapo were not the
it's
same.
separate.
Yeah, and before the SS, you had the SA.
Gestapo used to manufacture their own news also. You know,
But
because of the-
Ribicoff created a good image. We knew what he was talking
Gestapo
about.
tactics.
Yeah, because they, I guess they want to get rid of somebody, they would manufacture.
Here we go. Time out.
Time out.
History, huh? For how many years you taught history? Huh?
Once
Yeah, but
again,
I
we
felt-
must interrupt the program Meet the Chicago
Parliament.
Historians for a brief intermission. We'll be right back.
Hey friends, do you need an awning over your front, side, or rear door? Or your windows? How about a canopy for your carport? Or a patio cover over your patio so you can enjoy being outside in case of rain in the warm weather? All you have to do is call Awnings and More, and Raphael Bogus will drive over, measure up whatever you need, and go from there. You can call Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. So if you need an awning for your windows or doors, call Raphael Bogus at Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Raphael also installs hand railings for your front, side, or back steps. You must be safe when you go up and down the steps, especially in bad weather. So for awnings or handrails, call Raphael Bogus at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Call today for a free estimate.
Now back to our special editions of Meet the Chicago Historians.
Yeah, that was true though.
We're back on the subject, fellas.
Okay, just to follow up on that last topic about the Democratic National Convention and the how the Chicago Police Department was portrayed in the media nationwide, actually worldwide. Very interesting. Muskie, who was Humphrey's running mate at the time, they asked Muskie once, they said, when you traveled around after the convention, what was the feeling about the tactics, the Chicago Police Department? And he said, surprisingly enough, as I traveled around the country, I found overwhelming support for Mayor Daley and the Chicago Police Department. I always thought that was very interesting. So as hard as they tried to badmouth us, people that really knew what the true story, has a way of getting out.
I know,
think that-
Tom. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that was one of the
I'll be
pivotal
next.
events in terms of the public beginning to recognize the bias in the media. I think they began to recognize that what the media was telling them wasn't exactly the same as what was actually happening. They could see that the story coming out of the reporters was different from what they interpreted to be happening out there.
My own mother, not because I was new in the police department at the time. When Tom was down there fighting the real battle, I was midnight to noon in the district. You know, because we had. Well, what they did was they took the whole second watch and made them the detail for the from the districts for the convention, and the third watch, which is afternoons, and the first watch, which is midnights, took over the district. So I worked from midnight to noon. Somebody worked from 11 to 11. You know, so the two watches covered it. Anyway, what was I going to say? My own mother, not because I was on the job, she watched the local report, and it showed the crowd pitching things at the police, and they showed the police moving in on them. The national, this is NBC, the national, probably on the Today Show or whatever, only thing they showed was the police come in with their sticks, eh?
Right.
So if you just see that part, well, she was incensed, she was inspired, she wrote a letter about, the world is watching, it was just, she couldn't believe it. My dad couldn't believe it. She wrote, somewhere we got copies of it, so, of course, Mom's not with us now, but, anyway,
let's go back all the way to the Kent College when the Guardsmen shot the students there too. It was the same problem. Kids were throwing rocks and.
Oh, you mean
Kent State?
Kent State.
Kent State.
Yeah.
And they got shot. That's all.
Remember, we were watching midnight. Didn't Howard Miller or somebody have a late talk show on? Was taped at the time.
Yeah.
We were watching it on television afterward, and the one author, you laughed so hard. He said, "These people think that they don't having their rights violated because they can't throw rocks at policemen." Remember that?
Right, exactly.
It was
Maybe John, Bob too. Earlier in the early 50s, we had a senator from Tennessee, and I can't think of his name at the
Estes
moment.
Kefauver?
Yes,
They ran for vice president with
Yeah,
Stevenson.
right.
Yeah.
And-
Kefauver Committee.
He used to campaign
Kefauver.
with a coonskin cap.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, he came to Chicago. I was out in the military at the time, out in Washington State, and both of you gentlemen started, I think, at Wabash Avenue, right?
Yes.
One
Right.
time. Well, at the time, this had to be about 54.
I was in third grade. What were you, Tom? College?
I was working on my master's.
All right.
Well, you had to go through those grades carefully before you got to college.
Yeah.
Anyway, the captain there was a black man by the name of Kinsey Blewett.
Kinsey Blewett. Yeah.
Kinsey Blewett.
He
And
preceded the guy we had, Bob Harness.
Is that right?
Bob Harness was the version. We had Frank Pape. I think you've heard of once or twice.
Oh,
haven't you?
yeah.
With his robbery detail. Yep. Well, Bob Harness to the black community was the same guy. He had this high crime, serious crime group. The Brown Bombers, they called them, as a matter of fact, after Joe Lewis's name. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so he's being interviewed, and he said, I'm the commander of, Wabash Avenue and all that. He said, on my midnight shift, I have 8 patrolmen go on duty. I have more people in my district in the state of Utah. And I have 8 patrolmen going on duty.
You know what? He wasn't exaggerating.
No, I
I'm
don't
sure he
think
was.
They used to say 200 and some thousand. Don't you think it was almost twice that time?
Right.
I mean, those days now.
Yeah.
A lot of urban renewal has gone on since then.
Well, the other way of putting it in perspective is the 16th district is larger than any other village in the Illinois.
Seattle is bigger than Seattle, Washington, because so is the 8th district on the southwest side,
It's covers more ground than any other
area-wise.
Oh, area-wise?
village.
Seattle?
So it's a village on its own.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's,
I don't know how many people. Huh?
And how many people?
Makes a good
how many
story.
cops they got there?
Well, but no, that's
anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. We had people in those days. We're talking about what a great gun, what a great policeman like Sylvester Washington was, Two Gun Pete or whatever. I had veterans who had met him. He said he wouldn't last at all in this job today because you couldn't do the things he did.
Yeah.
If he said, all right, there's a disturbance here at 47, they yell, everybody over the station, Collins and Twos, they'd go over there because they'd be afraid not to.
yeah.
So
Well, there was also a black cop. They called him Two Gun Pete. or
That's
something.
him.
That's the guy.
Same guy.
Yeah.
He would tie a guy up loosely, and then he took off and he blew him away.
Well, I didn't meet him. Tom had a beer at his place, didn't you?
Yep.
He had a bar.
He had a tavern on
Oakwood Boulevard.
Oakwood, uh-huh.
Hilltop
Oh, no kidding.
Lounge. Sylvester Washington, proprietor. So,
Must have
I
been
didn't go over there. I
only
wish I
lounge
did.
on Oakwood Boulevard, 'cause
It was called the Hilltop or
Right,
whatever. it was.
Hilltop
There was
Lounge.
also another cop, was his name Mullen or something like that? He used to give tickets to
Oh,
Jack
everybody.
Muller.
That, he was
Oh,
famous
Jack Muller.
Oh,
50
yeah.
years ago.
Ticketing
yeah.
the mayor and
Yeah, all the
aldermen and
Well, just because
everybody.
he goes through red light stuff like that has nothing to do with it.
But you know, he ran for sheriff, and I think that
think
was
he
a
did.
big buildup for you know.
He wrote a book called I, Pig. I, comma, pig, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Muller. His were mostly parking violations, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
Yeah,
too.
moving,
Parking
yeah,
tickets, yeah.
yeah.
But he gave a whole bunch out there, and he was the king of parking tickets for a while there.
Didn't
And they-
Tom? I think you said, didn't he? Someone call him crazy, and he went and had himself examined and sued the guy or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, not
Well,
too
that's
crazy.
that's like Jackie Gleason and his character Ralph Cramden on The Honeymooners when they said, Ellis told him that he was crazy or whatever, and he said, "Hey, they examined my head and they found nothing."
Dizzy Dean said that originally too when he got
Yeah, Art
beaten.
Carney.
Just thinking now of going back to our topic of amusement parks, would maybe the closest thing nowadays something on medieval times, where they do jousting and knights and things like that. There's one in Schaumburg, just off the
Yeah.
expressway.
Yeah, it's not bad. I've been there.
But
We're
there's
going,
no,
going there this week,
also
Rich,
have,
and it's
I'm glad
not
they're still going on.
Not
Yeah,
really an
that's fun.
amusement park. Oh no, it's still going
They
on.
got
We're going
wenches
there
that
this
serve
week.
the food.
They also
I
have
hope
It's my
you're gonna
Father's
tell us.
Day.
could you
Residence Fair showing up once in a while.
Oh yeah, it's way up north though. That's
Yeah,
The Renaissance
yeah.
Fair is up towards like the Wisconsin border.
Yeah.
It's up that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
not
not
far
far.
from Great America.
Medieval times. You ever
Pretty
been
ne-
there? You're going to enjoy
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
going to enjoy it.
no,
It's very
the
the
nice.
meal
yeah.
and they put on
Several
these
times.
Yeah.
jousting or whatever in the.
were you
My,
able to say
my
anything
daughter's
about
going to be
Kittyland?
the princess.
Kittyland, we didn't talk too much about.
No,
it.
no.
Nothing much
That
about Kittyland.
lasted until very recently. It's
Yeah,
just
Kittyland, just a couple of years ago. Yeah.
There was
And
on,
the one of the rides that survived from Kittyland is the Little Dipper, and they put that in Great America just for the sake of nostalgia.
Now, was there only
They put the
one
Little
Kitty
Dipper.
Land that we're speaking of? The one at North?
There,
and,
no, there were
First?
many Kittylands,
Yeah.
not in our area so much, but Kittyland and Playland were a very common name. Now, the one I remember, because I'm not from the north, I'm from the south side, is Playland, and that was over in Justice. there.
Right.
That's the one I
79
remember.
across.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Kittyland had a little problem because the original owner died and the heirs were
The
not
kids were all
happy.
fighting over it. Yeah, that's what actually broke it up. Yeah.
It was still successful. As
It
I
was.
understand
It was
Yeah.
still a moneymaker.
It didn't go
Yeah.
out of business because it was
No.
going downhill.
No.
Playland, what happened to Playland closed in '79, and Playland wasn't necessarily making money, but it wasn't actually losing money either. It was just kind of staying
Where,
the same.
where was that located?
That was over on 79th Street. It's actually where the Sterling Estates trailer
Right.
park is now.
okay.
At the time it was built there, it was Willow Springs,
Right.
but then it became Justice.
Right.
But the Rocco family that owned it actually developed an amusement park ride. They developed the flying scooters, which were the ones you sat in, and they had the thing you held by hand and you moved it.
Oh, yeah.
This
They
way,
still
that
have
way
them.
back. It was kind of a dangerous ride, really. If you let go of the thing, it could come back and whack you in the head.
We used to
And,
wait for the sign to say it was opening because the kids were small.
Yeah.
A lot of the rides were older. It didn't matter to them. They could
What
ride
happened
in
with
this.
Playland too was in Kittyland, for that matter, they just became old-fashioned. Great America now it was the age of Disney World, Disneyland, Great America, the sanitized parks. So that stuff, the old gravel parks with the dust and everything, that was just,
Only thing I know
that was
is-
going the wayside. Yeah.
Bob, it's
I
funny
was
you
in
should
Tivoli.
mention.
I was in Tivoli Park in Europe anyway, and the rides there, if they got here, they'd be shut down because of being dangerous.
Oh yeah, well that's how
Tivoli
Riverview
and-
was.
Tivoli, were you at Tivoli in Copenhagen?
Now,
Reg,
Matt-
you had something to say.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. No, anyway, funny you should mention about the old-fashioned and how things were. When we grew up in the 50s, well, here's a good example. My girls, we didn't send our son to St. Rita because we don't have a son, okay? But the girls were both on the color guard. And they, the band had a
Good reason.
had a trip more recent years. They went to places like Disney World or the Nashville, the Great Ole Opry. But the one year, a few years ago, they went to Cascia in Italy, where St. Rita came from. And as Tom said, in my days with the band, our big trip was to Riverview.
Right, it
Oh
was.
yeah.
That was the band trip. We performed at Riverview. They had a band competition there, and then
Yeah.
we got coupon books to go on the rides.
Now, what I
And
remember
if
now,
you went on 2 Cent Tuesday, that really stretched out that coupon book.
Right.
Yeah.
the same
I
same
remember, I
era.
remember coming back from Europe one time, and
Too bad.
all these Germans were coming back from Disneyland. They said it was cheaper to go to Florida than it was to go to Paris.
Wow.
I could see where that might be
Yeah.
practical. Yeah.
We had Kittyland over at North Avenue
On
and
in Melrose Park,
Melrose Park. The day before they closed the doors forever, I was with WJJG at the time, and we did a live remote.
a
We
show.
did about a 3-hour live remote broadcast right there in the parking lot.
I wish I had
I was there.
something like from all the parks, like a brick or something from Riverview or
Yeah.
something, because everything
Now-
just got bulldozed in and nothing.
Now, River-
St. Old Chicago, nothing. They just bulldozed it all down.
Yeah,
got rid of
Riverview
it, nothing.
Park does have a Facebook page, though.
Yeah.
They do.
Look-
Yeah,
really?
River, you got a Facebook
And
page.
now
There's stuff up on YouTube you can find in that, and also too, if you go on eBay, they're selling a lot of tickets,
tickets,
but
yeah.
they're fakes.
Yeah.
They're actually
Okay,
reprints.
now,
Oh, yeah,
River-
the other one, too, is
Riverview
Olsen-
Park was
Olsen Lug, Park has a lot of emails. Or
Riverview Park was just walking distance. In fact, I used to walk from Riverview Park because I lived at Addison and Oakley, and I used to walk to Riverview Park during the summertime was my second home. I
Mr.
was
President,
there over
Mr.
there.
President, Mr. President. As I was trying to say, going back to the same era of the 50s, our big trip was not to Disney World or something like that. Our big trip as a family, we'd go on the CJ picnic, Chicago Junction Railroad, which my grandfather worked for, my uncle worked for, my cousin worked for. That's what we named our show after, Chicago Junction. Anyway, they had a chartered train. Oftentimes it was a steam engine, 63rd and LaSalle, and there were passes for those who were actually employees, but my dad insisted on paying whatever it was. We got on to Michigan City for the day. Now, you talk about a place to go. Michigan City had a beautiful, beautiful beach. I mean, anyone familiar with Washington Park? What it was like?
right. I've been there.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful. And it was, they had the picnic area, they had the amusement park, they had the zoo, and they had a tower, which you can wind, so all day long. But I do remember, have very, very fond memories of that. And oddly enough, here's a real great little fact. This might be on the quiz now. I did a little of that, pro wrestling for a while. The first place I ever had a match was in Washington Park, Michigan City in 1970.
cool.
So summertime, yeah.
How come there's no film footage of you
Yeah.
wrestling?
well, the other one is people are really
Film that wide.
Yeah, maybe he. Yeah.
an interesting place to go is Muskegon with the USS Silversides, USS
Yeah.
Silversides,
Yeah.
which I guess Washington Harold Washington threw out of the city.
Well, they
And
wanted
it was
to
very
pay a mooring fee. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it was
that
at
was
the
a
Armory.
disappointment because they
The,
make a
uh,
lot
naval-
of money in
That was
Muskegon.
at the Naval
on it.
Armory.
Columbia, Columbia, Washington, Yacht Club, no. Silversides, yes. That's the way it went. Instead of saying, gee, this is great. Like, here's Chicago. Got 2 submarines. U-505, Silversides,
Yeah.
Allied American, German.
Oh, yeah.
Riverview, oddly enough, I'm really surprised. There's a street, there's a couple of streets, Riverview, but there's nothing there to,
Oh, they're-
market or anything that it was ever there. Nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, nothing.
DeVry is
Just
over
I
there.
think inside the Toys R Us, which is there, they have a mural painted of what the park looked like, but that's about all. Nothing much, too
Well,
much left of
there
it. Yeah.
is there is a skateboard park in the back, which apparently nobody knows about except people that go there.
And they named it Riverview Park.
I don't know what it is because I haven't been back
Where,
there.
where's the park?
By the river.
Now, Old Chicago has a
that's-
street sign out on Route 53 off I-55. It's called Old Chicago Drive. And that's the only thing, that's it. That's
It's still there?
That's still there, yeah. And the 2 lions that were in front of the building, which were modeled after the Art Institute lions, but they actually had their tails down. Because people would climb on them and take pictures, so they wanted the tails down so people wouldn't break them. Those are still around. The auto auction place bought the lions, and they have them over there.
Yeah.
But Playland and Kittyland, the smaller parks, nothing much left at all.
Yeah, that's,
Nothing.
that's true.
Oh, the other
There's
thing.
that special that Channel 11 runs every year called Great Old Amusement Parks.
Yeah.
And so there are a number of classic amusement parks around the country that
Yeah,
are still
they're
flourishing.
still running.
They're still
Sandusky,
successful,
Ohio.
yeah.
The
Well known,
the Chicago Loop, which was the original corkscrew roller coaster, which we had at Old Chicago, wound up in Kenobi Park. I think it's in New Hampshire, and it's called the Kenobi Corkscrew. They painted it all blue. It was white originally. They painted it all blue, but it's still operating. So, some of the things
how
are
about
around.
the Milwaukee? And I hate to bring up another city, but the Milwaukee State Fair
but, oh, it's beautiful.
is still
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
My mother and her family used to rent. They lived right there. They used to rent parking spaces and that, but that was there. Then, how about up in my area of Baraboo, the Wisconsin Dells? We had a certain fellow that was on the radio, and he
Tommy
had
Bartlett.
his
Tommy
Tommy
Bartlett.
Bartlett show,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, he's
we
gone.
still have the
He must be
ducks.
100 years
And
old.
the
if he's
duck-
alive.
Oh,
Yeah,
he
well,
did.
yeah.
Everybody in the Dells. I remember when we were kids. We went to the Dells every year.
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
couple
he's
of
got a
weeks.
bumper sticker.
Everybody in the Dells
Yeah.
absolutely hated Tommy Bartlett.
Why is that?
Nobody, I don't know. Nobody up there
Well,
liked him at all.
Brought in business.
Nobody
Well,
liked him.
the other things you go up there, you got the Circus Museum.
Baraboo, yeah, there's the
Baraboo.
Ringling Brothers winter quarters. Now, a lot of people don't remember this. I'm going to throw this at you guys, and maybe you are up on this. Everybody knows the Wisconsin Ducks, right? Right? The original
Yeah.
Wisconsin
Yeah.
Ducks on land and water. There used to be another line of ducks called the Aqueducts. And the reason I remember this, and I saved the postcards that I bought when I was on the thing, was because it would go past the Ringling Brothers' old estate, which was still there.
Okay.
Our Ringling Brothers used to quarter their circus, as we all know, in Baraboo for the winter, which I thought was kind of odd. They didn't quarter in Florida or something,
Yeah, right.
but they quartered in Wisconsin
Little
in the
north.
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they quartered there, and they had their huge estate built there, and the house was still there and everything, and they had a boat there and everything. Their boat was like one of the first electric boats and everything. You had something to say, John?
Go ahead,
Oh, you're
finish
waiting?
up.
And anyway, their house was there and everything, and what they had was they had like a little small fire somewhere on the estate. Nothing significant at all. But being circus people and being very, very superstitious, they left everything. They left the cars in the garage, left the clothes in the closets, left the boat on the lake, everything they left, and just built a whole new house and moved and left everything there. And it was still there. I remember going on this aqueducts, and they went past it, and you could see the boat still have sunk in the water and everything, and they said the estate was all still intact.
The estate
Because
up
they also
there
got
is-
Of the
if
Ringling
you
Brothers,
go,
yeah.
if you go through Baraboo, and I do, because I own up there, you'll see a lot of different buildings, big buildings, that are all painted yellow,
And
all the same. Those are their buildings.
uh-huh.
You know, years ago, Franklin McCormick used to broadcast the whole month of July up at the Wisconsin Dells, and he was sponsored by Tommy Bartlett in the water show. And getting back to Milwaukee, Bill, every year when I was with WJJG, I think it was about 4 or 5 times, I used to go up and live broadcast from the Italia Fest. Paul Iannella had set everything up for us, and I would leave Chicago about 2 o'clock in the morning, drive up to Milwaukee, set up all the broadcasting equipment, and at 1 o'clock we go on the air for about 4 hours.
It's still a
Yeah.
great place up
Yeah.
there. to
The whole
go.
Wisconsin Dells in itself is just like one big
Oh.
amusement park.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
once upon a
saying.
time, it's kind of a shame because once upon a time people went there for the Dells, the river, the scenic beauty, and all that
Yeah,
kind of
no,
stuff.
yeah.
And now, no, the water parks, the amusement park, all that
Yeah.
stuff kind of
Well, the
took
other-
over. And the man that put them on the map was Henry Hamilton Bennett, H.H. Bennett, the man with the camera. He was the
Well,
one that did all the
I
photographing.
disagree with you, Bob,
Yeah, he
because
did all the
that place,
photographing and everything of the
that
Dells.
place
and-
is still very, very popular.
Oh, yeah.
There's
yeah,
a lot
it
of
is.
people
Oh, I
up
didn't say it
there.
wasn't popular. It's more, it's
Well,
popular
yeah.
more than ever.
Yeah.
I just said it's a big
It's-
amusement
It's,
park.
still, it's
right.
overcrowded.
Yeah.
It's overcrowded.
I
There's
go to the Dells
other
myself.
stuff.
I still love it.
Another
It's
amusement park.
overcrowded. But the other one, if you want to go there, is the North Freedom Railroad Museum that's up there.
Give us Barabbas! Quiet, everybody.
All right, is Santa's Village, is that still in operation?
reopened.
It reopened.
Yeah,
I know
reopened.
they had a lot of problems up there at one time, and that's up there in Dundee, off of Route 25.
They reopened. They sold the rides. They sold everything off. They closed. Then they reopened. They bought a lot of stuff back, and then they bought some new stuff and got the park going again.
John, if you're listening, I mentioned it earlier. My family was out there twice.
He was asleep.
Okay.
He was dozing back
Like
there.
No,
the
I
rest of
was
us,
probably
yeah.
paying attention to something else, because I got
I
something
may have
else
things to do in
going.
the control
Like I
room.
said
Something-
before, North
somebody
Freedom
mentioned
Railroad
North
Museum is up
Freedom.
there, and that's quite a nice
And
exhibit
North
to go
Freedom
to.
Where's
is
that,
right
in
down the
Union?
street from
No, this is
from
up
where
north
I
by Baraboo.
live. I don't think anybody heard me. did
Go
they?
ahead.
No, I'm listening.
nobody pays any attention
Everything
to you.
you say, I listen.
North Freedom is right down the street from me. During the winter, especially when it's cold, I can hear the trains. The Christmas train. They give free rides to the kids on this Christmas train, and it's kind of eerie for one thing to hear the train whistles.
Train
and that.
whistles, yeah.
But it's something like Union, Illinois. They have
Oh, there's
a
nothing
museum
the size
up
of
there.
Union, though.
Well, I'm sorry, to beg to differ with you. It is. It's quite a nice place.
I'm
Quite a
not
nice
arguing
place.
that point. I'm just saying Union's bigger.
Union is bigger. We have done some things there for the TV show Chicago Fire, and